Good evening and welcome to tonight's City of Burnside Council meeting of September the 17th, 2024. Please stand if you are able and remain silent during the acknowledgements. We acknowledge the land we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the original custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. We welcome other First Nations people to our meeting. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to all those who have sacrificed their lives for this country and its people. We also consider in our thoughts all those who today are being affected by war around the globe, and especially those in Ukraine and the Middle East. We seek guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all who reside, study, work in, or visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be seated. Some final reminders: not to use your mobile phones, turn off your microphone as soon as you finish speaking, and show respect to the speaker. When I read out the reports, please listen carefully. Press your button if you wish to withdraw the item for debate. Otherwise, as is usual practice, I will seek a mover and then a seconder before calling for a vote. We do have a large agenda and some confidential business to attend to near the end. We have no absences. Declaration of interest comes at the point in time when we meet, we move particular motions or to discuss reports. Confirmation of minutes. I seek a mover. Councillor Davey, are you moving?
I'm not actually moving that. I wanted at one stage, I'd like to seek leave of the meeting to make a statement, please. If I may, move that I could seek leave of the meeting. It's about the sitting arrangements. It's really to bring forward item 14, urgent business, subject to the leave of the meeting. Can I move that way, please?
I'm just seeking advice.
Could we put it to the meeting?
I'm just seeking advice first.
I am entitled to.
Yes, Councillor. Right, the advice is we do it at 14. There are an awful lot of other things that we need to get through tonight. Right, now I'm moving on to, I'm going back to confirmation of minutes. Thank you, Councillor Dawes. Seconded by Councillor Cornish. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Adjourned business, public presentations. We have no deputations or presentations this evening, nor any petitions. I'll go through these. And I seek a mover, someone who wishes to withdraw the item, otherwise I'll go straight to the motion, moving the motion. So, 11.1, Regal Theatre. Councillor Davey.
I'm withdrawing.
George Bolton Swimming Centre. Councillor Davey.
Thank you.
Appointment of City of Burnside Board Member to the Era Water Board. Councillor Jones. Update of authorisations and delegations, 11.4. I seek a mover then. Councillor Cornish, thank you.
Me.
Seconded Councillor Dawes. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Local Government Finance Authority, Councillor Cornish. Finance End of Month Report. I seek a mover. Councillor Dawes. Seconded Councillor Zing. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Recruitment of independent member of the Audit Committee and Audit and Risk Committee, Councillor Hallett.
Sorry, no, I forgot to check.
Okay. There's someone we do need to deal with it tonight, so need a Councillor Jones. You're moving it. Thank you. I mean, not moving it, withdrawing it for discussion. Minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee. I seek a mover. Councillor Hallett, you moving it?
Yes.
And seconded Councillor Cornish. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Council member induction policy. Councillor Harvey. Review of the code of practice. The seeker mover. No. Councillor Davey, are you moving it?
I'll withdraw it, thank you.
Eastern Regional Alliance Water Charter Review. Councillor Henschke, you're moving it. Seconded Councillor Cornish. All those in favour? Against? Carried. No, you've missed your opportunity.
Well, I'll put a rescission motion in.
Then do it.
Okay, done.
You have every right to do so, but I have given people plenty of opportunity and you did not get your name up.
Councillor
It was
Henschke
moved
was
and
the first to press the button.
it was moved and it was, I'm not going to argue with you, it was moved, it was seconded and it was virtually voted upon before you actually put your button. Mayor's report. Councillor Jones? Your name is still there? I seek someone to move it. Councillor Zing, you're moving, thank you. Councillor Dawes seconding. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Chief Executive Officer's report. Councillor Davey, you wish to withdraw it?
Thank you.
Right, now I shall go back to the first one, which is Councillor Davey, Regals Theatre Precinct Master Plan Detailed Design, page 5.
Thank you, Mayor. I move in accordance with the recommendation with a small addition, and that is that at 1, endorses the Regal Theatre Precinct Detailed Design Plan for the purpose of proceeding to the development application stage, but with an addition, with the inclusion of, if we could add this, with the inclusion of more lawn and soft planting to cool and green the raised garden plaza area at 420. Sorry, I haven't had a chance to send this through.
It would really be advantageous if people have running alternative motions could actually send them through to us prior to.
I thank you, but I ran out of time. I'll start speaking while we get it up on the screen. Can we do the wording? Do you want me to read it again? So, at the end of 1, develop application stage, comma, with the inclusion okay, I'll just wait. So it's just to get more lawn and soft planting in that centrally. The locals have actually said. And soft planting.
Do you have any further changes to make, Councillor Davies?
To cool and green. It's just there. The raised garden plaza. Capital P. Area at 420. Or 402, I beg your pardon. To cool and green. It's plaza. Capital P, L-A-Z-A. This one here, just in here. 'Cause it's all bad. Thank you very much. So thank you for your patience. Thank you everyone for all the work.
Excuse me, Councillor Davey, the CEO would like to make a comment before you start. No? Oh, wait, okay. Sorry, apologies.
Oh, sorry, is something wrong?
Carry on.
Sorry.
Might as well do it now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've
just concerned if we endorse it with that change, and the change may not be to what you're thinking, we'll have to bring this back for further endorsement. I'd just be reticent
I'll speak to
to
that.
make a change. That's all I'm
It's
concerned
very
about.
minor. Thank you, Chris. I thank everyone for all the work that's been done to date, the many iterations we've had, the consultations, and it's very pleasing to see us reach the stage that we're at. And I think we need to be now in a position to be able to apply for grants funding. So it's pretty key that we actually move ahead. There is still, as we're advised in the report, technical and engineering work to be undertaken to complete this. So there's lots of leeway still. This is just a high-level plan, as I understand it. And my minor change has been requested by locals who are concerned that when we look at the landscaping, there's no pagination on our plans, unfortunately. The central plaza area has got a lot of hard surface around it and very strong paving. And there's a bit of concern that there's a whole area there that's going to be very hard and quite hot in the summer weather and attract a lot of heat. So that's hence the reason for that consideration to be made when we're doing the final landscaping plans, that we actually plant some more lawn. We can have that, there's all sorts of engineering capabilities with lawn that people can walk on, interspersed with paving, and more soft plantings to cool and green the area. They just think the plaza area will possibly be too hot. So hopefully you'll support this, and we can progress it and hopefully get a lot of, some significant funding. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkins, do you wish to second?
Yes, I do actually.
Do you wish to speak now?
Yes, I will. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Davey, for the addition that you make, that you suggest we comply with. I'm really pleased that the Regal Theatre Master Plan has come to this stage. I remember writing when the first survey went out for comment, when we were going to knock down the cottage. I'm pleased to see the cottage remains and is being used wisely in this whole revitalisation of the Regal Theatre. I would also like to see there's a lemon tree from memory on the original site. If it's not, it might have died by now, but I think a lemon tree should be planted in this space because they'll use a lot of lemons in the gin and tonics. And secondly, the roses that are there have been there ever since the first plantings. And if we can dig them up, pop them up and keep them so that they can be replanted would be great. I also looked for and couldn't see there any mention of, and I'll keep banging on about this, the rear wall of the theatre, which has a big mural there, needs to be restored and protected, but I don't see mention of that in here at all, because that has been on the wall ever since, thank you very much, the theatre was built. It's part of the history of the theatre and it should be protected. Thirdly, have we thought about doing a video of the restoration of this project, a time-lapse video that one can show afterwards? They did this with Her Majesty's Theatre, and that would demonstrate to residents and the community that we take this seriously and we're proud of the Regal Theatre, formerly the Chelsea. Thank you.
Councillor Zee.
Thanks, Mayor. Can I just ask a question to the CEO, just to make sure we've got the interpretation aligned with this motion here? Just that this is understood by Barry's team that we're putting grass essentially all around the lift and underneath the lift. Is that how you would sort of apply the motion in practice?
Through Madam Mayor, I might just get Mr. Cant just to confirm his understanding. Through
the Mayor, my understanding is that there's a central plaza section that is between the rear of the new toilet block and the car park. That's where the majority of the paving will be. My understanding is that's probably the area that's been referred to at this stage. I'm happy to take the clarification on that, though.
Can I just ask you to follow up, Councillor
Absolutely.
Wilkins's comment about the restoration or the
Absolutely.
the inside back wall of the theatre?
We will. There was a few questions that were raised there. We will retain and reuse as many plantings on site as where we can, but obviously some have to be removed to accommodate. I will note that we are planning for an increase of 11 trees plus a large amount of low-level plants on site already that's currently there. We are increasing the green open space around the entire site by almost 200 square metres as well. So we are conscious of that, and we are aiming to do that. We will attempt to increase more where practicable. We do have to keep in mind DDA requirements with respect to access to the facility as well, so we do have to keep that in mind. With respect to the back wall, yes, that's very much being retained and it's been made a feature of the facility. The heritage architects are very aware of that. And your final comment was a bit too early for that, but that's absolutely certainly something we can do. Let's get it funded first and in the budget, and then we will look at those options.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Hallett.
I've got a question for Councillor Davey. If you look at the page with the photographs on it, I'm just trying to understand.
I'll just explain. Councillor Davey can answer in her summing up at the end.
Okay.
She can't respond to you now.
Okay. So I don't really understand where the area is, because it's asking for more lawn and soft planting in the raised garden bed, but the photographs already show there's a lawn there and already show that there's planting in the raised bed. So I'm not sure what's being suggested there. Where is this extra lawn to go, and where is this soft planting to go? I understand it's at 402, which is in that general area. But so I'm talking about the photo in the bottom left-hand corner.
Right, so that's your question. You weren't wishing to speak at the moment, Councillor Hallett? Okay, so then I'll move on to Councillor Cornick.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, similar question, this 402. I presume it's referring to PL 402 on one of the pages, because I note that the car park's even got a 402 on it as well, on the designs. And 402 Kensington Road isn't the actual address because that's a house. So I'm presuming we are referring to 31 May Street around the actual cottage home, and we're looking at something on the plan. I just wonder whether or not we could clarify better the area that this motion is actually trying to refer to give correct instruction.
We're just going to get it clarified by the CEO.
Madam Mayor, just for clarification, if I can direct council members to, sorry, Mr. Camp, page 25.
It's either 23 or 24, there's two.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, to page 23. My computer's just running slow. So I'm referring to page 24. You'll note on the image there's on the left-hand side of that diagram, there's a large paved area which runs essentially from the front to the back of the facility, which we're calling the plaza. My understanding, and Councillor Jamie David will correct me if I'm wrong, is that that's the component that they're seeking more grass to be added. Is everyone comfortable with that? Yep, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for the clarification. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Dawes.
Yes, I think you've already hit the nail on the head, Mayor. Like I hate it when we're doing policy on the run, and this is another example. It might be excellent what Councillor Davey has put forward here. I just don't know. But 76% of residents are in support of the plan. So I don't know how many residents have come to Councillor Davey to say, oh, we want more lawn area in this part. And we've just worked out what lawn area it is. I would suggest that we don't vote tonight, because, I don't want to put my hand up where I don't actually know whether this inclusion of more lawn and soft planting can work for the overall planning. But I do understand about trying to have more soft planting. But yeah, I guess I've got to ask a question. I don't know if Aaron's here, but can this be done? I think that's perhaps go to the CEO. Can this be done? Does it mean we remove pavers and put more lawn area, or have they already looked at that? So that's a question.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the short answer is anything can be done. I do have a concern though, by adding grass to essentially a pedestrian area or a thoroughfare. I would have concerns about the maintenance of grass. I think the soft plantings could be accommodated within the beds, but I probably do have a concern around the grass in terms of the pedestrian using a thoroughfare and then the maintenance of such.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I have Councillor Cornish.
Sorry, another question, Your Worship. That section, there is a little bit of a veranda, is that correct? And the planter box will be halfway between the veranda and open air, where the pedestrian walkway is planned to be. I suppose, do we know roughly how much light we'll get there? Because, similar to Councillor Dawes, grass needs light to grow, and it don't want it to be a muddy sort of thoroughfare in between.
Through Madam Mayor, I think it comes back to my concern that if a decision's made tonight, as per the wording, it may or may not achieve what Councillor Davey is seeking. I'm just concerned that the two may not match.
Councillor Zing.
Could you mention, Mayor, something along the lines of with the consideration of more lawns in the planning? Will that suit? So that way we're not fixed into this, so the planning architects are considering the fact.
Councillor Wilkins, are you happy to change the word inclusion to
Absolutely,
consideration?
let's get on with it.
Okay. Consideration of including more lawn. with the consideration of it, yeah. Yeah, that, are you happy with that now, Councillor Davey and Councillor Wilkins? Oh, wrong one now. Who's there? There it is. No, there it is now. All right, now is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Otherwise I shall go back to Councillor Davey. All right, Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for your interest and input. It's very heartening to hear that the old Mediterranean trees like lemon and roses can be retained or transplanted, and hopefully even some of those beautiful old olives would be terrific to retain. As we've worked through, the central plaza section will be highly utilised. It runs right between the front of the Regal, alongside it, and right through the middle of the whole place to the car park, so it will be highly utilised. And there are now quite sophisticated reinforced lawns you can get, that you can have pavers with plantings or greenery in between them. They needn't be onerous to maintain, but because it's in the full open with exposure to the sun and the light, this should be able to be grown. So, as we've been told, anything can be done. The final plans are still being tweaked, and we've got more engineering and technical work to do. So, I hope with all of the work that's done and the wonderful design and heritage work that's been done to pull all of this together, that we can just make that final tweak and get this underway and hopefully get some funding soon. So hopefully you'll support this. Thanks.
All those in favour? Against? Motion's carried. Now Councillor Davey. Sorry, page 28, 11.2, George Bolton Swimming Centre Playground Shade Structure.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got another amended recommendation for this item, that Council 1 removes the playground equipment and replaces it, or removes the 5-year-old playground equipment installed adjacent to the toddler pool, and replace this So we've still got 1 and 2 that Council removes the 5-year-old playground equipment installed near the toddler pool, and replaces this with a tree to cool and shade the area, and notes that costs will be accounted for within the Council's annual budget at the first quarterly budget review.
While we're waiting, do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor.
So it's Council removes the 5-year-old playground equipment, and it's that's 1. So it's that Council, and then it's a line down with one and removes. That's it.
Councillor Davey, this
And
would save
replaces-
a lot of time if you had provided us with this before.
Replaces this with a tree to cool and shade the area. So we're nearly there. Well, we used to be able to amend motions. That's part of our business on council. And 2, notes that the cost for the removal... Can't they just will be accounted for within council's annual budget at the first quarterly budget review. While this is happening, I'll move into my speech. This item, as everyone might recall, was knocked out of the recent budget consideration process as part of the cutbacks, which we all agreed were necessary to accommodate the need for reduced spending, among another huge range of spendings. We all made lots of sacrifices to cut back. So I believe that this ageing equipment should be removed, as is highlighted in option 2 on page 19, para 19. And the area remediated, and I think we could really use our in-house staff, hopefully, to remediate the area, plant a tree for additional shade, even a nice oak tree or something like that to make it a feature, and use our own staff to reduce the costs. Everybody goes to the pool to sit in find a shady spot, especially with their toddlers. They take their kids in and out of the pool, play in the water, bring them out, cool them. I'm not sure what use the playground actually gets, but I really don't think we can expend nearly $40,000 to upgrade it. So hopefully you'll support this. It's one of those sacrifices we've had to make in the budget sacrifices we did make, and that's I think a sensible outcome. So hopefully you'll support this. Thank you.
Councillor Turnbull, do you wish to speak now or later?
Yes, please, I will, thank you. We discussed this topic at a workshop. I remember the discussion where most council members decried the spending of $37,000. I repeat, $37,000 for a shade structure on a piece of play equipment at a swimming centre. This is a swimming centre, not a mini playground. When I take my grandchildren there, they go to swim and play in the water. After they've finished swimming, we walk across to the Wombat playground, 3-minute walk away, and they play on the equipment there. I agree that the play equipment in this swimming centre should be removed and relocated into one of the 42 other playgrounds in the Burnside Council area. This will cost less than an expensive shade structure in the beautiful shaded green area of the swimming pool. Though I did note today in one of the catalogues, you can get shade structures for $30. Honestly, I think sometimes council has to pay too much for small things. Anyway, this will cost less. The other alternative suggested in the report was to fence it off with bunting with signs saying keep off. But that's pretty onerous and really don't know what the weather's going to go. So, as an alternative, and keeping with our greening Burnside policy, plant 1 or 2 mature trees near the offending apparatus. And noting the costs, aren't we supposed to be mindful of spending money? I'd rather spend $20,000 rather than $37,000 and relocate it, although the quotes, as I said, seem excessive. Then we'd have $17,000 freed up that we could spend on other projects in all our wards. Perhaps using creative thinking, the children who really need to go on equipment and go on the slippery dip could be granted passes to the adjacent playground, then they could return to the swimming centre. So I'll be supporting this motion, and I really do agree that the playground structure needs to be relocated. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question before Councillor Harvey speaks, and that is, I understood that this play equipment could not be relocated, it would have to be dumped. Can I get clarification?
Excuse me, Mayor, I can't hear you. Could you please speak up?
I'm sorry, I'm speaking a little quieter tonight.
Well, I can't hear over here.
All right, then I will speak louder.
Thank you.
My question is, I understood that this playground equipment could not be removed and placed elsewhere, that it would actually have to go to landfill. Could that be clarified, please?
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, just get Mr Heinrich to clarify that for us.
Through the Mayor, thank you for the question. I believe the paragraph 29 deals with that, but essentially we wouldn't be able to relocate it. The removal of the playground would disturb it to such an extent that it couldn't be relocated and therefore would need to be dumped.
Thank you, that's what I just wanted clarified. Now, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a question, please. This playground structure has been in place for 5 years. Why is this only being addressed now when we have no money? Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, I think the trigger for bringing this forward was the toddler that experienced the heat effects of the landing before you get onto the playground. So I think it was that incident, if you like, that brought it to our attention. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of years ago, when I was working pretty solidly with the Adelaide Parklands Association, during the summer, I was getting around with a infrared thermometer, just getting temperatures of the difference between what happens if you've got open green space and if you've got no green cover. And the temperature differences were, I have to say, amazing. Like if it was, say, 22 degrees and you took the temperature on the ground, it would be close to 40 odd degrees. Now, one New Year's Eve, this must have been when there was this drive-through COVID clinic in Victoria Park or Pakpakanthi. I was getting temperatures close to 80 degrees. This is, we're talking bitumen with no trees, and it was just, the temperature on the ground was incredible. Now, when I got to a plastic playground, it was hot enough to cook an egg. So if this playground cannot be moved, we could either plant a tree that will take 100 years to become useful, even though a tree is useful, or we could just build this shade cloth, which seems like the council's recommendation, and it seems like the safest thing we can do to keep our young children safe and avoiding serious burns on a hot day. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Cornish.
Just got a question in regards to the tree that's looking to be planted. Obviously the costing of the tree hasn't been factored. What sort of costs are involved, and has the administration considered a tree if the playground is removed? And if so, what sort of species are we looking at? Are the pipes going to be an issue for the pool underneath that area? If there are, what consideration has been given to what to plant in that spot?
Through you, Madam Mayor, at this stage we hadn't formally considered a tree. The question becomes how mature tree is the tree we're going to plant there. If it's similar to our verge plantings, that's about $250. But if we're looking at a tree that's, say, 5 or 6 years of age, that can run into, I was going to say 2,000 to 4,000 is the range. Thank you. Yep. As far as the pipe work, that's something we'd have to assess at the time. Given that there's footings there for the playground at the minute, I would imagine there's no pipes under that location, but we'd assess once removed. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
I think I have to support this motion, if reluctantly. We have to stop spending money. Already, just getting rid of this thing is going to cost us $20,000 that we hadn't budgeted for. But it's the least worst option. We can't. We decided this. We've got to. I think we should do it. Look, I mean, personally, I'd take the least cost option of just covering it in bunting. It's sad that it's a wonder those of us of our vintage are still alive, frankly, given what playgrounds were like when I was growing up, let alone when Councillor Wilkins was growing up. Yeah, so look, I think reluctantly, let's take the least cost option because we've been told by the community to rein in our spending, and people keep saying people are under cost of living pressure. So let's acknowledge that and support this motion.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. I won't be supporting the motion. A number of aspects concern me of this. Number one is I believe that, well, it's the only playground actually inside the swimming centre for children. I am concerned that and I know people are scared of $37,000, but over 20 years of the life of a shade structure, how many children are you going to be turning away and not paying entry fees to the pool because there is no playground inside the pool area? And parents won't want to go outside and inside and outside and inside and outside and inside all day when their children want to play on a playground. I think this is probably not the best move for the community, and it's for those reasons that I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkins.
Well, I have a cheaper option. Why don't you just buy a very large shade sail, a market umbrella, and put it there? If you have to get rid of the playground equipment, Rotary does actually relocate and oversees surplus playground equipment. So it could be utilised elsewhere, but really you could put up a large market umbrella and that would solve the problem on very hot days. I do not support spending $37,000 to take it down.
Councillor Hubel.
Thank you, Worship. I can't support this either. I think there should be a playground. And given our self-imposed budget restrictions on spending, I believe that we should be putting bunting around it until we can afford a shade sail. If monitoring the weather is too onerous, bunt it off for the season, or on sunny days, put the bunting off, shady days, take the bunting down. I don't think it's that difficult. Myself, I think going through the rigmarole of getting rid of a playground completely just sounds like a very drastic knee-jerk action. So I vote against removing the playground, but I think bunting or an umbrella is a more common sense and a fiscally responsible option.
Councillor Dawes.
Yes, unfortunately my laptop is again down, so I haven't got this information, so I might have to call upon Ash again. A question first, CEO, if I think in the papers, and I can't check it, on a normal summer, how many days would we not be able to use the playground? I think there was something in there, there was an estimate. Can I be just advised of that, please? And then I would like to speak following what Councillor Hubel said.
Certainly. Through Madam Mayor, I might just ask Mr Heinrich just to find that paragraph for me. Just
Through the chair, the temperatures were taken between the 9th of November last year and the 12th of February this year, and on 56% of the time the thing was unusable, and that doesn't take into account what might have happened in March, because March can get hot as well. So it's likely to be more than 56% of the time that the playground would have been unusable in any given year.
Right. Thank you, Mr Heinrich. I'm leaning towards Councillor Hubel and Councillor Cornish here, and also Councillor Wilkins, that, I just think 37,000 is very large. The risk assessor has said to us that we have to do something. So one alternative is to remove it, which I'm not really in favour of. The other is to find something to shade it with, and it may be what Councillor Wilkins is saying, or we might put, as what Councillor Hubel says, we put bunting around it for for this summer until we find a better solution. But I'm not keen on spending $37,000. I think that would have the majority view here. But I'm not in favour of removing it either.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? If not, then I shall go back to Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you everyone for your contributions. We have a wonderful swimming centre, highly utilised by the community, especially in the hot weather. We know it's jam-packed. I mean, I haven't asked for the data for what the facilities are, but they're pretty hot in the summer. They're pretty high in the summer. We have a wonderful playground further up the park in Wombat Waterhole, where parents can go when the children want to play after they've had a wonderful experience swimming, with all the toys in the wading pool and the small kids pool. We provide wonderful, abundant facilities in the swimming centre, which is what the centre's for. I believe it's really highly noted and very popular for that. We're also looking to green our public spaces and plant more trees wherever we can. So I think if we've had a negative experience with using hot playground equipment, it's better to manage the risks sensibly in these cost-cutting times by removing this, ageing equipment anyway, beautifying the area with a suitable tree, and that the costs are kept down with the City of Burnside ground staff used to do the work. I think we can make it a beautiful area. The trees and green will be enhanced, and I think that will solve our problems at much greater economy than a nearly $40,000 shade sail. So hopefully you'll support this. Thank you.
All those in favour? Those against? The motion is lost. Do I have an alternate motion? Sorry, did I miscount? It was 5 to 7. Yes, it was definitely 5 and then it was 7. Because I was weighing up if I had to have a casting vote. Now, Councillor Cornish, you have an alternative motion.
I was just going to move the officer's recommendation, which probably is not what some other people, but that's where I was sitting. So unless someone else has got a motion that is the midway point, but I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation and see if I get a seconder.
Councillor Henschke, are you willing to second the motion? Do you wish to speak now?
No, obviously,
Right.
thank you.
Councillor Cornish, do you wish to speak? Sorry, to address the motion?
Yeah,
You have got a seconder, so.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I won't. I've lost my chance to actually technically speak, but I will ask a question about the cost of $37,000. It's the issue, I suppose, around the chamber. But I just wonder if the administration can explain why a structure like this that needs to meet public requirements and safety requirements out in public might be a little bit more expensive than a market umbrella that we can buy from Bunnings for $20. So I wonder if you could explain why the cost of installing something in the public arena is a little bit more expensive than what we can buy at the hardware store.
Yeah, certainly. Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to clarify that. When you install any form of playground equipment or equipment associated with playground equipment, it's required to meet a certain standard, and along with that standard comes a higher level of engineering associated with it, which bumps the cost up. The other factor that comes into play here, and whilst on one hand the suggestion of umbrella sounds plausible, it's the height of this structure that's actually means that we're having difficulty to cover it with a lower shade structure. So once you combine the height associated with the meeting the standard that's required by legislation, that's what incurs the cost. It certainly wouldn't be the similar cost if we were installing this in our own backyards.
It has to withhold massive potential storm damage, and you remember the damage that was done a few years ago with the winds in that park. So, anyway, Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering where the budget, since this was knocked out in our budget, where the money is coming from for this proposal. I must have missed it in the report.
Through Madam Mayor, in the finance section of the report, it talks about referring this expenditure to our quarterly review. So at this point in time, we haven't identified where the savings ideally would come from. Once we get to the end of the quarter and we pull together hopefully other savings from across our budget, they will be amalgamated together to hopefully fund this item. The idea being that when we get to the quarter, there's a zero effect on the bottom line, ideally. But at this stage, it's too early to identify specific line items that this would be funded from.
Councillor Wilkin.
Thank you. A question. I note the structure on page 32. Is this the type of shade that you are wanting to install? Is this the only version that there is? Could you not go to a company that makes actual yachting sails and get something that is better design? Can I offer that suggestion, which perhaps might come out at a lesser cost? I just think that looks, quite frankly, ugly.
Through Madam Mayor, I don't know if Mr Heinrich's got any comments about that, or Mr Kent. Thank you.
Through the Mayor, Councillor Wilkins, those designs are designed to match the existing shade structures over the central pool that I believe you were part of the panel that assisted in selecting those. But so part of the design is absolutely to, as the CEO has described, to meet all the relevant standards. Part of it is to make it look appropriate in such an appropriate park-like setting and to be consistent with the other shade sails on site. But also, you can't just get yachting sails because you need a certain UV protection ratings and things like that as well.
Councillor Hallett.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll have to come back to you later. Councillor Davey, you have a question, do you?
Thank you.
Do you wish to speak?
Can I speak again to this? I think I can.
Yes, you can.
I've just got 2 points to make. One is, I really do think we're at risk of in terms of the bucolic ambience of Hazelwood Park and the swimming centre, ruining that. I mean, with talk of bunting around everywhere and then shade sails and all sorts of other shade. I don't think it's really good look for the our wonderful heritage park, I have to say. So I hope you won't support this motion. The other question is, what if we don't make savings from the quarterly review? How do we fund it? I'm still at a loss to know how we fund this unbudgeted item, which we all agreed only a few weeks ago would be lopped out of our budget. Can anyone answer that?
Through Madam Mayor, if during the coming financial year there's absolutely zero savings achieved, it would increase our deficit by $37,000. But as is our experience during the year, there are various numbers of unders or overs that occur in all our budget lines, and so the officers would be doing their level best to bring back a balanced budget to council each quarter. But worst case scenario, just to put Councillor Davies' mind at rest, it would result in a increase to the deficit of $37,000.
Councillor Hallett.
Thank you. A question to the administration. Are there any legal impediments to using bunting so we could actually bunt off the play equipment or bunt off the slides on a day when the temperature is extreme? And I know the last time we talked about this, I mentioned about having a covered slide, and that hasn't been considered in the report. So I'm wondering how much a covered slide would be and whether or not there's any reason why we can't actually just use bunting on a day that's too hot.
Through Madam Mayor, I'm happy to take that one.
Microphone? Sorry, not you, Kerry. Sorry.
Just to answer we did evaluate a covered slide, and we couldn't find a covered slide that fitted that design of that playground. So, in essence, to do that would have necessitated a whole new playground. So that certainly was explored. I was a bit disappointed because I thought that was a very good idea. The second part of your question about bunting. Yes, bunting is absolutely an option. If we're going to do that, I'd suggest we bunt it off until council's prepared to deal with it, because otherwise I've got staff trying to rely on temperature reading. And if you take it in the morning, for example, the temperature of the day may vary, or vice versa. So I'd suggest that I wouldn't have staff checking the temperature through the day. It would be a position where it was bunted off permanently till we found out an alternate solution, rather than have staff having to consider that essentially on an hourly basis, because you could not make a determination at the start of the day. For example, if the temperature was cool and you said take the bunting away, and then it heated up during the day, we would be exposing the council to risks, and the staff would therefore have to be going to constantly measure that temperature. So I suggest bunting is an option, but you would bunt it off permanently.
Councillor Hallett, do you have another question?
Yeah. On a day where the weather forecast is for a certain for a certain temperature, say it was 38, just say, then that would be at the beginning of the day. You've read, you know what the temperature forecast is, and you bunt off the slides. Whether or not it gets to that temperature or not, you just put the bunting out over the slides for that day. Once it reaches a certain temperature, that seems to me to be pretty easy.
Madam Mayor, the counter to that argument, though, is that if the temperature was, for example, say 19 degrees, it's much cooler, and the officers made a decision to not bunt it, if for some reason during the day the temperature rose, there could be a point during that day where it gets to the point where the children are at risk. And I don't want to have the officers having to worry through the day, do I have to go and measure that temperature again, or has the temperature increased above a certain point? That's the side that I'm concerned about.
Councillor Jones.
Can I ask a question, please? Prefiguring a potential alternative motion, is there any form of fast-growing vegetation that we could plant that would quickly shade the offending parts of the playground? Or, you know, some tall bamboo or something? Or a Leylandi cypressi, they grow very quickly, very attractive exotic plant. So just throw that open.
I think, Madam Mayor, I'm absolutely open to alternate solutions. If the councillors have a mind that they believe there's an alternate solution, I think the solution is to bunt it while we work through an alternate solution, but I don't think I could commit to that tonight, not knowing the technicalities of how you would do it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Mayor. Just following up from Councillor Jones, there are lots of trees that grow very quickly. You just need to come down to Bunnings, to the nursery, and we'll give you a discount on my card. There are heaps. And so this stuff about taking 100 years to grow is not correct. So you could get a good, well-mature tree, plant it properly, in 4 years' time, you wouldn't know it from some of these others that have been there for a long time. So, okay, it's costly, but not as costly as 37,000 or 20,000, so it's an alternative.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak If not, Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. Look, I know 37,000 might seem quite a bit. The playground's got 15 years life in it. That's less than $2,500 a year. And according to our current rates of $8.50 for every child, that's less than 295 children a swimming season get to use this, then it's actually value for money. So we're talking less than 300 kids a year using this playground. It pays itself off. I don't think there's an issue. We understand that it needs to meet some engineering requirements. It meets and is sympathetic with the current shading sails that are already in the swimming pool area in terms of their design, look and feel, so that it seems seamlessly part of the swimming centre. I please hope you support the motion as it stands. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? 6, is that 6 or 7? No, 7-5 the other way. The motion is lost. So we need an alternative? No, let's move on. Okay, thank you. All right, now we then move on to 11.3. Councillor Jones.
I have emailed through an alternative motion. Now, sorry, they're having some IT difficulties. Did you get it? I sent it to Matt and Alan. Just getting it up now. So my alternative motion is that council undertakes a secret ballot process following the mayor inviting nominations to appoint a council member to be council's board member on Era Water. Shall I speak to him?
Can I just ask a question before we move on? Yeah. Does that mean that it can only be a council member? That's what you're meaning on this. It can't be what's proposed as the acting.
Yes, I was going to propose to be a council.
Right, so you want a council member.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
All right, Councillor Day, do you want to speak now? I've got a seconder, Councillor Davey, I think.
I'm seconding it, am I?
Yeah, I'm assuming so.
Well, that's what I've put my...
Well, your name is there, so I'm...
Thank you.
So now
I'm now acknowledged as the seconder, is that right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Shall I speak? Yes, you can. So, look, this is different from the officer's recommendation. I think Chris, as CEO, has done an excellent job as our board member on Era Water, but I think that's because we had confidence that it was Chris who was going onto the board, and as yet, we don't know what's happening with acting CEOs and who the acting CEO might be. And I have to say, at the time that Chris was appointed CEO was a time of enormous conflict between elected members as to the future of Era Water, and there were two armed camps at loggerheads, so to speak, and Chris was a good compromise candidate that avoided us tearing each other's heads off. So I think we're now in a much better place about Era Water. I think the current chairman is excellent. He's done a very good job of steadying the waters and getting a plan on track. And I have a lot more confidence than I did before Chris was appointed as to Era Water's direction. I mean, that's not to say that I don't still have concerns. But I think now's the time that, like the other two councils who have elected members on the board, it's time for us to put an elected member back on the board, and so that's what I'm proposing. And that's, you know, that's the same as EHA and East Waste. You know, we think these subsidiaries are important enough for an elected member to be our representatives, and that's what I'm proposing, and I hope you all support that.
Councillor Davey, do you wish to speak now?
Thank you. Yes, I endorse all that Councillor Jones has just said. I think it was a time of unrest, perhaps is a good way of putting it, when we couldn't decide on who our representative would be, and the CEO has done a great job. I note that the other two representatives are both councillors from Norwood, Payneham and St Peters and Walkerville, and with the independent chairperson. I think it's appropriate, as on most of our other subsidiaries, that we have an elected member represent Burnside, so hopefully you'll support this motion.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? If not, Councillor Jones?
Yeah.
I put the motion. All right, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried. I seek nominations. Who would like to put forward a nomination? We won't need it if we only get one. Councillor Davey?
I nominate Councillor Turnbull.
Councillor Cornish, are you nominating someone?
Yes, Councillor Jennings.
Councillor Jennings? Councillor Zing?
Could I nominate Councillor Dawes?
Councillor Dawes? Now, I haven't asked, do you all accept those nominations? Councillor Jennings? Yes. Councillor Turnbull? Councillor Dawes? No? All right, thank you. So we have two nominations, Councillor Jennings and Councillor Turnbull.
Can I throw in Councillor Hubel as a nomination?
Councillor Hubel has said no.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
So there are there, final call, are there any further nominations? No, there being no further nominations, then we will need to do a vote. And if I remember rightly, we put one name on the piece of paper. You're just cutting up some paper? Sorry? No, I know you weren't. That's fine. We're just getting some paper ready. Now, the candidates need to make a commentary or make a comment. Well, that's what's usually required, Councillor Wilkins. So they need to speak, and I'll ask Councillor Jennings to go first because it's alphabetical. So, Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm a big fan of water. The wars of the 20th century, the wars in last century were fought over oil. The wars of this century will be fought over water, and clean water, and water that you can keep our parks green, and water that we can bank up just in case we have another 100-year drought, which is just becoming more and more prevalent. My rainwater tank, for some reason, is almost empty, and I only like to water my pot plants and my vegetables with rainwater. I think that our water resources should be managed much better. What's happening with the Murray is just a nightmare, and it could be done better. We need less bureaucracy and more common sense, and occasionally shooting from the hip, which I am very good at. Thank you.
Councillor Turnbull.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I was very much against Era Water when we first came into office 4 years ago, but I've changed my mind completely. I've seen how our parks and reserves, which are put onto Era Water, have responded, and they're beautiful. So something's working. This water is good, and I think that we we just need to keep an eye on what's happening, so I'd be happy to do that on the board and report back. And this scheme is good, so I've changed my mind completely. And I think that's because Mr Cowley and his emphasis and his influence on that board. So I'd be happy to do it. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you. So we're just waiting for... Oh, we've got some pieces of paper.
No, I've just cut up.
Oh, you've cut something up, okay.
What's she doing?
She cut some pieces. No, I don't think that's right. Here he comes.
Councillor Turnbull, can you turn your mic... Councillor Turnbull, can you turn your microphone off, please?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll now call out the names as they come out of the tin. Councillor Jennings. Councillor Jennings. Councillor Jennings. Councillor Turnbull. Councillor Turnbull. Councillor Turnbull. Councillor Jennings. Councillor Turnbull. Councillor Turnbull. Councillor Turnbull. Councillor Jennings. Councillor Jennings. Councillor Jennings. 7-6. Might I suggest, Madam Mayor, so based on the results of that, we'll put Councillor Jennings' names into the motion. It's also appropriate to have a proxy. So if the mover is of a mind, it might be worth listing Councillor Turnbull as the proxy.
Seconder happy? Seconder was happy, so the motion now just needs to read that, well, I guess there's a motion now required to appoint Councillor Jennings as the board member to the Era Water Board, and the proxy being Councillor Turnbull.
Through Madam Mayor, if I share some governance advice?
Yes, absolutely.
According to the legislation, whilst it's not a remunerated position, you do have a non-pecuniary conflict. So when the vote is undertaken, I'll need both parties to just leave the chamber, please,
Okay.
just to comply.
Just while we do the vote, you need to leave the room. Councillor Turnbull and Councillor Jennings. Could we change deputy member to proxy member, please? The proxy, as the proxy. Is that crazy? Appoints Councillor Turnbull as the proxy. Member. It does, the recommendation says deputy member, so apologies, we need to go back to deputy, sorry Helen. Yeah, of course. Are you happy for me to put this to the vote? Just go straight to the vote? All right, so those in...
Don't you need a mover and a seconder though for this?
I do. Thank you, Councillor Cornish, you've just moved it.
I'm happy.
Councillor Dawes has just seconded it. So all those in favour? Against? Carried. And now they can be returned to the chamber. And whilst that's happening, we are moving to the next one, which is Councillor Cornish 11.5, page 68. The reps for the Board of Trustees of the Finance Authority. And I know you have a motion ready, Councillor Cornish.
I do, and I did send it through.
Yeah, it's up.
Not quite, it isn't?
No. Well, it hasn't got the names in there, that's all. You can insert those now while we're waiting for the others to come back in.
Oh, I have sent that through the system. There we go.
Ah, there it is.
Bada bing.
Yeah. Just give them a moment to
sit down.
settle. We've just now moved on to 11.5, page 68. Councillor Cornish has the motion that he sent through up there, nominating Councillors Piggott and Phillips Ryder.
Yes. Someone had to pick something. I've picked two councillors. My rationale, obviously, we've got a very strong history with Councillor Piggott. He's got quite a history with accounting, would be quite good. He is also a representative of a council that is very close to Burnside and similar sort of makeup and residential sort of population as the city of Burnside. The reason why I've picked Councillor Michael Phillips Ryder is he's got quite a strong legal background, which I thought was quite important for the board, and he's from a regional council, and I thought it was quite important to have different aspects on the board so that they can bring different experiences to that board and issues that might be raised from a regional council that is growing and a metropolitan council that has grown and is just ticking over. I think they're two very different areas and expertise and knowledge base that both of these candidates would bring to the board, and that's why I've selected these, and I hope someone seconds it and we get on with appointing. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkins, you're seconding?
Yes, I'm happy to second Councillor Cornish's motion.
Speaking now?
I'll reserve my right.
All right, then who does wish to speak? Councillor Turnbull.
I just want to say, well done. That's well spoken, because I thought the same thing. one metropolitan and one country, because they do get neglected. Well said.
Councillor Dawes?
Yes, the question from me, because I don't know any of these gentlemen or ladies, is it all gentlemen? It is all gentlemen. Because I looked at Michael Sedgman, who's the CEO of the City of Adelaide. Oh, he must know something about this area. But can administration's a question, give us any sort of guidance here? And I'm happy to go with Councillor Cornish's recommendation, but...
It's a decision of council, I think you've got to make it.
Right, okay.
They've each submitted, there's a little bit about
Yes,
each of them.
I've read them all, and they are very strong, these candidates, there's no question of it. But I'm happy to go for one for regional and one otherwise.
Councillor Jennings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I looked through their very brief CVs, and to me it seems that Michael Segman and John Smedley were the pick of the litter in my view. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Then I shall go back to Councillor Councillor Wilkins, or you missed your chance to speak.
You want to say anything?
Do you want to say something?
Yes.
You've already seconded, so do you wish to speak? Otherwise you're about to miss your chance.
That's not going to happen. I'm happy to support Councillor Cornish, and I have absolute confidence in Councillor Pickett and somebody from the seat of light in the Mid-North. The Mid-North will need some representation on the Finance Authority, I think, if they don't get any rain over the weekend. So I'm very happy to support this motion. Thank you.
Now, Councillor Cornish, do you wish? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Motion's carried. The next one is recruitment of independent member for the Audit and Risk Committee. I hope you've got some more voting papers ready. Sorry, page 91.
Look, colleagues, I'm just moving this because we've got a vacancy and we need to appoint someone. Yeah. So I don't think there's much to debate. So, yeah, I move the motion.
Okay, and Councillor Davey, you're seconding?
Yes, thanks, Mayor.
Right, so you do need to receive some nominations. Oh, sorry, I haven't got my microphone on. Nominations, Councillor Davey?
I'm happy to nominate. I can work
You'd
during...
like to nominate yourself?
Yes, I nominate myself.
Councillor Zing?
Could I nominate Councillor Jennings?
Councillor Jennings?
This is curious, and I will accept the nomination. Thank you, Councillor Zing.
This is for the Audit Committee. Yes. Okay. Councillor Dawes?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Councillor Jones.
Councillor Jones, do you accept the nomination? Yes. Are there any further nominations? Right. Councillor Jones?
I'll nominate Councillor Hubel.
Councillor Hubel, are you willing to?
Yes.
All right, so Councillor Hubel has accepted the nomination. I believe we now have 4, is that right?
That's correct, Madam
Mayor. Okay. Is final call? Is there anyone else wishing to nominate or be nominated? All right, then. Yes, Councillor David, what's the problem?
I'm just saying, happy to say I'll withdraw since there are so many other nominations. So
All right.
I'm happy to withdraw.
All right, thank you. So there are 3 now. Councillor Jennings, Councillor Jones and Councillor Hubel. We now need some pieces of paper again. Thank you,
So,
Mr Heinrich.
and so just in terms of this, Madam Mayor,
Do we need to have someone speak? Them speak?
yeah,
Each speak?
just instructions. So it'll be 2 names on the sheet of paper.
Right, okay, but they need to speak first. Right, so first I need... Are there only a selection committee? Yeah, okay. No, look, we don't need to do that, so we just go straight to the vote. Now, just to clarify, you need to put 2 names down on the piece of paper. right? So your 2 names on the piece of paper that you wished to represent you in this selection committee.
Right, through you, Madam Mayor, I'll now call out the names as they come out of the bucket. Councillor Jennings, Councillor Hubel. Councillor Jones, Councillor Jennings. Councillor Jones, Councillor Jones. To seek some clarification on that.
Yes.
You can't vote for the same person twice.
No.
No,
So does that mean is it valid, invalid?
Invalid.
Oh, you can't vote for yourself twice. Didn't even vote for myself twice.
Councillor Hubel, Councillor Jones. Councillor Jones, Councillor Hubel. Councillor Hubel, Councillor Jennings. Councillor Jones, Councillor Hubel. Councillor Hubel, Councillor Jones. Councillor Hubel, Councillor Jennings. Councillor Jones, Councillor Jennings. Councillor Hubel, Councillor Jones. Councillor Hubel and Councillor Jennings. Councillor Hubel, Councillor Jennings. So I declare the result, 7 votes Councillor Jennings, 7 votes Councillor Jones and 10 votes Councillor Hubel. Therefore, we'll go to a second round.
Councillor Hubel goes in there now.
Sorry? I just seek clarification from governance.
Councillor Hubel fills in that first space.
Certainly, Councillor Hubel's confirmed. So, through Madam Mayor, just to clarify, the rules are that we do another round, and should that round be inconclusive, I then pull it from the hat.
Now, one vote.
So one
This
name.
time, one name.
So for clarity, it's either Councillor Jennings or Councillor Jones are the two names that you need to consider. Oh, yep, sorry, mate. Sorry. Councillor Jones. Sorry, I've counted two votes so far. My mistake. Councillor Jones is 3. Councillor Jennings. Councillor Jennings. Councillor Jones. Councillor Jennings. Councillor Jones. Councillor Jones. Councillor Jones. Councillor Jennings. Councillor Jennings. Councillor Jones. So 8 votes for Councillor Jones, 5 for Councillor Jennings. I declare Councillor Jones's name goes second in the motion.
No.
Just,
That's it, it's done now.
just a selection.
So now we need to move the motion as it is. And did we have someone already move it? Yes. Councillor Jones moved the motion. Councillor Davies seconded the motion. So now we just need to vote. So all those in favour? All those against? Motion's carried.
Thank you, colleagues.
Now we move to the minutes of, no, we've done that one. Recruitment. Number 9, 11.9, the council member induction policy, Councillor Harvey. Sorry, page number 112.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation as written, and I would like to thank the councillors who took the time to contribute their feedback to this induction policy. Also, administration for their work in putting this together. This is vital and important information for all councillors on being elected and ongoing. As a newly elected councillor, I was waiting for an induction which did not come. Yes, we were given a council member's guide, however this should have been supported with a workshop. We have workshops on various topics weekly. Had an induction policy been in place and a workshop on this topic, it would have given all councillors the notification and a greater springboard undertaking their newly elected role as councillor of Burnside. In any new appointment into a business, one is afforded as many tools as needed to succeed in their role. This is not just any old role, it is an important local council position that should be initiated with team building to help pave the way forward in this significant role with sound leadership and collaboration with other councillors. This needs to be done on commencement of the role of councillors, not 2 years down the track. Many of us would have had a clearer understanding of even the basics required of the day-to-day running of council life had this been in place. Also, better working relationships with each other would have been formed with team building. An understanding of the Civic Centre, where to park without being fined, and the meeting of administration whom we need to have a close working relationship with on all levels of local council. Who we need to contact and for what query. A bus trip of all our parks and reserves that was finally undertaken some months ago was proof of an informative and fun learning environment on the run, as was the tour recently of the Civic Centre. This policy will give newly elected councillors and and ongoing councillors a sounder, clearer, smoother and detailed transition into council life. I hope you will support this. Thank you.
Councillor Hubel, are you wishing to second it?
Yes, I will, Your Worship. I'll speak to it very briefly. Look, I think this is an important measure of an organisation. Good induction is a very good metric of an organisation, and I think it is something that can always be improved upon. You know, the better your people are, the better your operation will be by people in this instance. I mean, elected or council members. So I think Councillor Harvey spoke very, very well on this. I think there's some very valuable insights, and I commend this motion and to you all.
Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Harvey spoke very passionately and very sincerely. If we had a real in-depth induction, perhaps I might not have wound up on having the newspapers ring me and having to go to TV about my returns, which I had no idea about. It's small things like that when in a new role, if you're not told, you only know what you know, and a lot of people don't know what they don't know, and I was one of them. So I feel this is a very good motion. I will hope you support it. Thank you.
Councillor Dawes.
Yeah, I think I need Ashley again, dear me. There's something wrong with IT tonight, but yeah. So I have got down the important clause for me, and I've said this to the administration, is 2.4.4. I don't know what page it's on, but for me as a new councillor 6 years ago, It was how you respond to resident queries, you know, what is the process? And that's in there, 2.4.4, and I think 3 or 4 of us, when we did respond to the first draft, made a point of that was a key aspect of being a council. Now, we all know about policies and all those other things, but how you respond to the residents and how can administration help you and so forth. So I do highly recommend this induction policy, and I do thank Councillor Harvey for bringing it up 3 or 4 meetings ago.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I thank Councillor Harvey for raising this issue and I think moving the original motion. I endorse all the comments that have been made around the chamber. I think it's a really important part of the process for newly elected councillors, but also those of us who've been around for 1 or 2 terms. Things change. But most importantly, I think an induction process with appropriate and associated early team building is critical for us all to be able to learn about each other and collaborate together and work together, which is one of our key tenets of our role. I strongly endorse this. I just have a couple of questions. In the actual guide at attachment 2, it talks about the council members area, and it talks about what we will be provided with. There's nothing in there about soft drinks, and I just wondered if we've already got an assumption that these will be provided, and also the confidential document disposal. Just because they're not written in here, does that mean they'll still be made available and not quibbled about? Thanks.
Through Madam Mayor, most certainly you'll find that those 2 items I think are catered for in the Act, where it talks about the certain things we must provide. But no, they will continue to be provided.
Councillor Jones.
Look, I'm going to support this motion. The only thing I wanted to draw people's attention to, for those people who were here at the beginning of the next council, is what it says in paragraph 6 of the officer's report, is that we shot ourselves in the foot, I think, by banning any training. We got the new councillors in and then we promptly banned them having any training over summer. And look, if people are here next time, I strongly recommend we don't do that again. And that would be a really good opportunity to give some intensive training, particularly to the new people. And I do think some intensive training just for new people would be a good idea, because you've got different audiences, and it's like teaching a very mixed ability class, shall I say. It's hard to do. So, otherwise, I support the motion.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I completely agree with Councillor Jones's comments there. I would also suggest, and this might be a variation to the mover and seconder, but whether or not we actually solidify when this gets reviewed, and whether or not councils should actually review it in June of the year of the election, so that it's fresh and updated, and including the guide, so that we've got actual current local members of parliament and stuff in there, and so that we're actually looking at it just before we're about to go into the election cycle, so that the policy's updated and we've included something in there. I just wonder whether or not a review just prior to the election or just prior to going into caretaker would be an appropriate sort of mechanism to ensure that this policy and all the other supporting documentation are at least reviewed by this chamber before we go into that cycle and start, so that they're as fresh as possible.
I don't see that as an amendment, so if Councillor Harvey and Councillor Hubel are willing to allow that to be added to it, it could be just that Council adopts draft policy as presented in attachment 3 and reviews it in...
I'd say within 2 months of caretaker.
Within 2 months of caretaker.
Or 2 months prior to caretaker.
Yeah. 2 months prior to caretaker period for the next election, before the next election. Because we don't know when that's going to be for sure. That could change according to Parliament.
But apart from that, I think it's
So,
an amazing policy.
Councillor Harvey and Councillor Hibby, are you happy with that addition?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Thank you. Are you happy with it as it's written now? I have no one else who wishes to speak. Do you wish to summarise, Councillor Harvey?
Yes, very quickly. Thank you all for your input and kind words. This is a policy to suit all of us, and I hope you will support this very important draft council member induction policy that will provide support to all, whether new to council or re-elected. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Motion's carried. Right, the next one is the review of Code of Practice. Councillor Davey, you have withdrawn it.
Thank you, Mayor. I very reluctantly move in accordance with the recommendation, but I won't be actually voting to support this, and I hope that it gets voted down. I think we need 2/3 of the meeting to endorse a Code of Practice. I know a lot of work's gone into this, but it has become, I think a lot of our input, I'm disappointed that a lot of our input wasn't included, and I think it's become an overly bureaucratic document with lots of variations and additions, and people wanting us to return to having to stand up if we do a division. So I actually think we need to workshop this more and get a more consistent view of how we view the procedures at meetings process, because I think we can make lots of improvements and they're not reflected in this document. Thanks.
So you did formally move that motion? Okay, I'm seeking a seconder then. Councillor Zing.
Happy to second, Mayor, and I reserve my right.
All right. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Councillor Hallett.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a problem with the recommendation. I actually support it, but I do want to speak to the chamber because some of the comments that have been included in the report I found particularly offensive. I was dismayed by the feedback that council members made regarding the Code of Practice procedures at meetings. While it involved a majority of members, I consider some of the comments bring the elected council into disrepute. Accordingly, I believe the council members who provided feedback should be named. I do not want members of the community thinking I might hold those views or similar. Specifically, I'm referring to deleting the acknowledgement of traditional owners, as well as comments about personal hygiene and dress code. Acknowledgement of traditional owners. As council members and community leaders, it is expected councillors will meet legislative obligations. Under the Racial Discrimination Act 1975, it's unlawful to do an act in public that is based on race, colour, national or ethnic origin of a person and likely to offend, insult or humiliate that person or group of people. I consider seeking to delete the acknowledgement of country is offensive, insulting and humiliating to Kaurna people, and I don't want my name associated with it. Personal hygiene, the comments are offensive, unsubstantiated and potentially discriminatory. I've never witnessed any lack of personal hygiene. It's a very subjective, slippery slope to negotiate a dress code or good grooming standards for council members. Some members work and arrive at meetings or workshops directly from their place of employment, which in some cases will not be an office environment. Council should not put unnecessary barriers in the way of local government participation. Accordingly, I would like to advise that the ownership of the provided feedback comments be identified. Who were the council members 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 and 6? If deleting the acknowledgement of traditional owners would be unlawful, I would like the administration to comment on that point. And I do want to because I actually agreed with them. And that I do not agree with the comments made by councillors 1, 2, 4 and 5. I strongly disagree with their views, which I find demeaning and potentially unlawful.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Zing.
I've just got a question, Mayor, just following up to Councillor Hallett's commentary just then, probably to governance behind me, to Matt or Wendy. Is there a reason that people are identified as Councillors 1, Councillor 2 and not by names? Because I don't see that's confidential, so I suppose we could identify council members giving feedback.
Yeah. Through Madam Mayor, it's more about the process that we went through. So I think if when we sought the feedback, we had advised the council members that their name would be put against their commentary, the councillors will be aware at the start that whatever they said would be attributed to them in writing in an agenda. So I think going forward, if the council wishes for that approach to be taken, we would just have to be very upfront when we sought the feedback, just to be clear. The reason why we haven't done it at this point in time is because we hadn't been clear at the start. My concern was that once people are aware that their name will be published in an agenda with their comments, they may or may not have chosen to vary some of the commentary, that's all. Thank you.
Councillor Dave.
I just have a question in relation to identifying contributions. Do we do that anywhere else in any of the feedback we give, the multitudes of feedback we give? I don't think we identify who the... it's all aggregate data, and nowhere are we identified when we provide feedback.
No, through Madam Mayor, the practice we've used here is the practice that we've used across our operations to date.
Councillor Dawes.
I'm just querying here, Mayor. So Councillor Davey has moved this motion?
Yes.
Just,
and it's been seconded by,
yeah, despite
and
her
seconded by
saying that
Councillor
she
Zing.
would prefer to have it discussed further at a workshop. Is that so? Just want to understand what we're talking about now.
So if I can clarify, Madam Mayor, just because you move a motion doesn't indicate which way you're going to vote on that item.
Yeah. You can move a motion and then vote against it. It has happened many times in our past, hasn't it, Councillor? Right, Councillor Jones.
Sorry, can I ask a question? This is kind of clarifying, Councillor Dawes. Councillor Davies moved the motion, but she hasn't called for a workshop.
No.
So if this gets voted down, it just won't happen. There's no workshop happening.
Correct.
So
The motion stands exactly. It adopts the code of practice procedures at meetings as presented in attachment 1, end, full stop. Right. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? If there's no one, then I shall go back to Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Lots of very interesting comments around the room. My major concerns in the welcome are that we give too much emphasis to some portions and parts of our community and not to others. I'm very keen to see our multicultural community recognised in our welcome, and also our first responders and emergency services personnel. I think they're wonderful. If we're acknowledging people, you know, like our Defence Forces and First Nations people, I just think we could review it and make it more all-encompassing, and especially for our increasingly multicultural community. Thanks.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? The motion's carried. Now, I'm looking at the time. It's 5 to 9. We have one more, the executive report. I'm in your hands as to whether we go ahead and finish that, and then we have a break because we will then be going into largely confidential. There are a couple of motions there that do not need to be done tonight, and if we are running out of time, we've got to handle all the confidential stuff, and that would also include Councillor Jones's 13.2. We may have to put off the other two. if we are likely to run out of time. And there are some announcements, and there's also a request for a wish to speak. So shall we finish 11.13 now? I'm getting lots of nods. So, okay, let's finish 11.13. That's you, Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. I move in accordance with the recommendation, all four parts. All four parts. And I just had a couple of questions that I'd like to ask through you to the CEO, if I may. We agreed in, can I go ahead? We agreed in our budget deliberations and when we made our agreement that we would do a service review, and I just wondered, I couldn't read anything about that in here, I might have missed it, but I just wondered when we're going to undertake the service reviews and what will the process be? And then I have a couple more questions, thanks.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we've certainly started conversations, but I might hand over to Mr Spearman just to give us a bit more clarity.
Through the Mayor, that's correct. We've started initial conversations internally. We're setting up a bit of a project plan as we speak. So that will be underway, and we'll be on track to have the service review finished in time for the budget cycle.
When does it start?
Sorry, and through the Mayor, where it starts is the costing of the existing services. So the identification, as you'll recall, what we have on the website and the 119 services, not all of those are technically services. So we're actually doing a review of what those actual services are, step one. Step two is costing those services and setting up our general ledgers to match those services so that we can figure out what these things are actually costing us.
Councillor Hallett, you have the next opportunity
Yeah,
to
I've
speak
got
or a
some
question.
questions, please. The questions are to the administration, and it's on page 334, Kensington Wama. I noticed, well, I'm a bit confused about what consultation is occurring over the club room redevelopment. From my reading of the report is that there's two lots of consultation. One is over the lease, the 25-year lease, and one is over the development application where they're proposing to have a community open day. And I just wanted to ask, is that the case? Is that right, that understanding?
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr Kent.
Through the Mayor, that's correct. Council resolved when it last considered the matter to do consultation on the club's request for a longer term lease. So that consultation has now been completed and we're analysing the results. The consultation to do with the development was provided, I believe, to Council separately as well as within this report, and that includes the open day at the clubs, which I believe is being planned for a Saturday in later September or October. We'll give you the results of that, and there'll also be engagement if it's required through the development assessment process as well.
So,
You can have a subsequent question.
so there is two parts, there's two stages of the community engagement. One is for the leasing, the lease agreement, and the second stage is the development application process.
There's not stages of engagement, there's two very separate engagement processes. Yeah. So there is community consultation in line with the Local Government Act for offering a lease or considering a lease for over a 5-year period. So that's why Council undertook that consultation process.
And that's the one that's current?
That's closed, but it has passed, and we're just assessing the results of that, and we'll present that back to Council. Okay. The other is community information as part of the notification and promotion of the upcoming development, and that will be undertaken through a community open day at the club rooms.
Yeah. But we are conducting that engagement. That's being conducted by the club.
Through the Mayor, that is correct. We are assisting them, but that's off their back that they're doing that. That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now, Councillor Hallett, could you just turn your mic off? Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor.
Just before you do, I haven't got a seconder. Apologies. Councillor Dawes, are you happy to second? Okay, I'll take your motion, your seconding, and now Councillor Davey, you can speak.
Thank you. I just have a couple of follow-up questions. In terms of HR, can you tell us what the duty supervisor position is and who the sixth, there's only 5 positions vacant listed and there are 6, as is mentioned. I also need to know... Okay.
Through Madam Mayor, if I can get Mr Spearman just to give us the update on that, please.
Through the Mayor, to answer the first question, the duty supervisor, their function is to not only lifeguard, but they also manage a lot of the operations, the day-to-day operations, some supervision of the contractors and that type of thing. And a bit of site maintenance as well.
So which area is that in? Oh, at the swimming pool. I didn't hear that, thanks. And the 6th position vacant?
Through the Mayor, I believe that's a typo. That should have said 5. Thank you.
Okay. And then could I ask, with the delays to the opening of the swimming centre, not till the end of November, I know discussions were being had for the cafe to be open at the end of September, as is per usual, and the community are hanging out for it. So can you let me know how the negotiations are going with Hazel's and when they will be open, and will they be supported so that they don't lose too much business?
Through Madam Mayor, I know Mr Camp was looking to put in place some financial assistance, but I might just get Mr Camp to update us on how the process is going.
Through the Mayor, we have put an offer to the current lessee to see whether they'd be willing to open as per the normal timeframe. We have put an offer with respect to holding off on lease payments to try and make that attractive for them to do so. I understand that they're currently looking at their business model to see if that would be worth their while, and they're getting back to us shortly. So as soon as we hear, we will let council know.
Thank you. Councillor Turn.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Could I please ask a question about page 335, replanting? Understory planting has occurred. Tree planting will be scheduled, etc., etc. Ongoing monitoring, regular monitoring. Could we please have some more information about when things are going to be watered? We need a schedule for our wards. So, for Burnside ward, it could be every month or whatever, so we know. So we can watch for those water trucks and make sure. Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, just refer to Mr Cant.
Through the Mayor, our Urban Forest Interactive shows exactly when the watering trip has been and what plants it's been watered, so I'm happy to share that link with you again.
Councillor Hallett, you have another question?
Yes, please. This time it's on page 335, and it's about the Blue Gums update in Kensington Park, and it's 47B talks about soil nutrient
tests.
Tests. And it talks about high salinity levels, that could be a problem. And I'm just wondering, this is a question to the administration, is there any evidence of swimming pool discharge occurring, illegal swimming pool discharge occurring, that could be actually polluting the soil? Because a lot of swimming pools now are salt, not chlorine.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think in that location, we're not aware of even the opportunity for swimming pool discharge to actually arrive at that site. So I don't believe so.
Just one final quick question. With the ever-increasing dry periods that we're experiencing, I just wondered, are we bringing forth, or have we already started our irrigation program in all of our parks and reserves and everywhere that we are irrigating? because it's getting very dry in the undersoil at the moment. Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, I know our teams actively monitor that, but I'll see if Mr Cairns got an update.
Through the Mayor, there are certain areas that are being irrigated at this moment, yes, but the teams on the ground monitor that very carefully, and when they believe that they need to be turned on, they will absolutely do that. I'm more than happy to provide an update out of the session. Sure, I can put that in info doc.
So, do you wish to speak again? Right, because we have to vote on this motion, okay. So, you don't wish to speak again? Right, then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Motion's carried. Councillor Turnbull is seconding. We have a 10-minute break at this point in time. Right, thank you. We will. And we will resume at 16 minutes past, not a minute later. If we're efficient, we should be able to get through the agenda as it is stated. Electric vehicles, questions on notice have been answered. Motions on notice, the first one is Councillor Davey, prevention of accidental collision.
Thank you.
Page 359.
My motion is that with some urgency a professional risk assessment be undertaken in relation to the shared traffic zone in the car park adjacent to the northeastern end of the Civic Centre, where I believe there is, as has been shown in an incident, there is a risk to staff and Civic Centre users from an out-of-control vehicle hitting the building. There is no bollard protection at this end, as was installed further west, it should be, on installation of a children's play area adjacent to the car park. And two, that a report be brought to the November Council meeting advising the results with recommendations for management and control of the risk which requires physical protection against the vehicles. As has been shown in the previous discussion regarding the hot playground equipment, we take risk management very seriously. I've left on your tables a photo of the incident that occurred at the end of March this year when an out-of-control car managed to move, and you'll see the photos, managed to move right across the wall and the pedestrian path into and abut the wall of the building. Thank God it was going at low speed, and I believe no one was hurt. But our staff have done a terrific job with the reactivation program in the Civic Centre, with hugely increased numbers of members of our community from the Mums and Bubs Club, the game players who play there, and all the exercise class participants moving through and using this area and section daily. And that's the area just behind against this wall. And as you can see, there's a doorway just adjacent to it. The risk appetite has changed because of this, because we're now aware of this incident, and also the accompanying traffic activation in the car park. So it is just constantly cars coming in and out, and I go to Strength for Life classes, so I see this every week on a personal basis, with people driving around looking for parks and then whizzing in and out. We see increasingly people for some reason hitting the accelerator when they try to hit the brake, and they plough through buildings. We've seen it recently at the Erindale Shopping Centre with the chemist, someone going through the wall at the chemist. We've seen it up at Wattle Park, at the pizza shop where the owner was seriously injured. So while it could be argued that the traffic movements need assessment, and in my discussion with Councillor Cornish, he suggested we need that, and I think we do, I'd support that. In the interim, as we've already experienced one out-of-control vehicle from the car park crossing the pedestrian way and hitting this Civic Centre wall, we need to actually activate a significant expert risk management of the area, and then because of the risk of possible catastrophic outcomes, both to employees of council who walk up and down that pathway and to members of the public who use the exercise area. I don't think we can ignore this, and I think we really need to look at bollards or some other facilities. I mean, I can't think of anything better than bollards, which we have in lots of other places. 1,000 kilograms per bollard is a small price to pay for the safety of our community as well as our staff. I ask that you support this motion, please.
Councillor Zing, you're seconding?
I'm happy to second, Mayor, but I do have a question to Barry, probably so Chris, the CEO. Could you differentiate between the two costings for me? One's quoted at 1,000 each, one's quoted at 3,000 each. What's the difference between the 1K and the 3K ones?
Yeah, certainly through Madam Mayor, the cheaper bollards are more of an ornamental bollard, whereas the ones that are incurring the more significant cost are actually designed to act as a bollard capable of stopping a vehicle, so that hence the difference in cost. One has a much greater footing underneath it, as well as the material they're constructed of.
Councillor Dawes.
Yes, I'm just looking at the second photo that Councillor Davey shared with us tonight, and there seems to be a concrete border there, and I didn't check, but how high is that approximately that the tyre would have had to gone over to hit that particular wall? Can anybody tell me that?
6 to 8 inches.
That's a straight edge, is it?
Concrete strip.
So
6 to 8 inches with its back.
To that far. So 15 centimetres, thank you. So that means that there is some barrier there. So if a car did put on the accelerator, they have got some way of stopping the car because of that concrete barrier. Is that a fair comment?
Through Madam Mayor, you could possibly assume from this picture that because of the breadth of the garden bed and the height differential, that did stop the car causing greater damage.
Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is very concerning because if there was a family or just anybody and this happened, there could have been catastrophic injuries. Now, instead of bollards, would a big, heavy planter box have perhaps avoided this incident? And would it be more, perhaps, cost effective? Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, there's no doubt any structure, particularly perhaps a concrete planter box, may have assisted. I wouldn't recommend doing a planter box because then you're ending up with a very high level of concrete. That's probably going to impede access into the building. If you're going to do this, bollards would be the way to go.
Yeah, that's a 4,000 bollards.
54,000.
Well,
Councillor Harvey.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Just last week, after a council workshop, I walked to my car and noted an open door in the Civic Centre where many people were seated inside at a meeting. What caught my attention was that the door was open right next to parked cars. With so many vehicles going through buildings recently, including Wattle Park Shopping Centre Pizza Shop and the Erindale Pharmacy and the Burnside Civic Centre, bollards are needed in our Civic Centre to protect our community. There are bollards next to the children's playground where cars park, and I believe this should extend the full length of the building where cars immediately park next to the building with only a small walkway between the car and the building. We have had an incident of this happening recently where an out-of-control car has accelerated into our Civic Centre. Luckily, no one was badly injured. However, this could have been a much worse outcome. If an out-of-control car did happen to plough through an open door in the Burnside Civic Centre, as I've mentioned, then this could be catastrophic and put many people at risk. This is a case of cost versus injury to our community. The risk is too great. I believe we need these bollards put up to protect our community. This needs addressing as a matter of urgency. Bollards are used for a reason, to protect people against these out-of-control cars. And I'd also like to mention, Councillor Dawes mentioned the barrier between the car and the walkway. These are actually in the Erindale shopping centre, and the car that ploughed into the Erindale pharmacy actually mounted that same barrier and smashed into the glass frontage of that pharmacy. And it is taking weeks to get glass put back there, and it's currently boarded up. So I hope you will support this very important motion to keep our community safe. Thank you.
Councillor Dawes?
Yes, I'm having difficulty, as you can probably imagine, because we had local government insurance doing a risk assessment of a playground in the pool area and said it must be done. And here we have a similar situation where we have to do a risk assessment according to the motion. It's going to cost us between $5,000 and $10,000, and from that we could have an expense of $54,000. Seems a lot of money. There's a total cost of up to $64,000. So I believe we need to be consistent here. So we said no very closely with the pool situation. With this one, I do understand the risk involved, although I must admit that there is a 15-centimetre concrete border there, and we may not need to spend the extra $54,000. I think that Erindale Shops was a bit of a different situation. It is the Civic Centre, so we need to be careful, but we also need to be careful with the playground equipment in the pool. I just want to make that point. So I will support it because of the risk assessment, but I do believe we also need to re-look at the motion that we defeated earlier tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Corning.
Thank you, Worship, and yes, thank you, Councillor Dawes, for that comparison between the risk of burning children and potentially running over people at the Civic Centre. I think they're both worthy safety issues that we should be looking at. I want to ask a question in relation to this section, because from my understanding, from the door in this first photograph, which is the kitchen, I believe, a door to the kitchen, to the other end is a staff walk around to a smoking area potentially, so it does not get overly used, this section of the walkway. Is that accurate?
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, I'd say that's a fair assessment.
I too, like Councillor Dawes, am struggling between thousands of children using a swimming pool playground and getting burnt, to potentially a few people here, and a much larger cost in this location for bollards. I know that's not what we're asking for right now. We're asking for a $10,000 study, which might suggest bollards. So I'm with Councillor Dawes in struggling with the comparison between the two.
Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not struggling with that at all. A bit of a difference between some children getting sunburnt and somebody getting squished by a car, which could happen, and nearly happened to me up at Erindale. Everyone probably thinks we should have, but I just went back to get a prescription out of my car. If I hadn't, I would have been in that window because I was there. So I'm going to say we should have it, because squishy people is terrible. Sunburnt kids is terrible too, but not as bad. And I've just got a question for the administration, please. Could you tell us what the council's role is in terms of private businesses and bollards? Because there are two in our ward which are walking disaster, ready for a disaster. 2 cafes, and so I want to know what the council's role is to be able to tell them to get it or do something about it.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, I might give Mr Honrick just to give us some insights into that one.
Through the Mayor, it will depend on the circumstances, but essentially the council will have probably zero role when it comes to private operators, and that's the case certainly with the pizza shop at Wattle Park and the proposed cafe at Erindale. They're private operated car parks and shops, and the private operators therefore have to assess and manage the risk associated with those car parks.
Councillor Cornish.
Just a question, obviously. Can I just clarify in regard to the playground, as something said, it's not just about being sunburnt, it's about the fact that the equipment gets to 86 degrees or 87 degrees and could actually burn a child when they touch it. That was the concern from the insurers?
You've confirmed that absolutely accurately. I have no one else on the screen. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Hubel.
Thank you, Worship. I am not going to support this motion, as always with full respect to those who've spoken otherwise. I think this is a bit of a compromise solution to a problem that I don't perceive is really there. I think we should be more concerned with the errant driving that's becoming more prevalent. I think car parks are a dangerous place, and I think if you're walking near a car park, you're very alert and you're aware of cars moving near you. And I think drawing on the CEO's comment of the one near-miss incident, and I assume that this is in addition to the one that we have a photograph of tonight, in 20 years of current configuration, it doesn't seem that errant cars are a major problem in car parks around the council area. So I kind of look at it, and where I started saying it's kind of not really solving a problem, I'd go, why aren't we looking at surrounding every car park in the council area with bollards? If this is an issue here, it's an issue everywhere. So in that case, in that sense, it's a bit piecemeal. Why are we doing it in this one spot? And then I also think, well, why are we not, completely, meeting all of Australian standards by doing a complete redesign? Why are we stopping short? So if it's a serious problem, let's have a serious solution. Not a mediocre solution to what, can be seen as a major problem. So I don't think it's a good solution if the problem was serious, but I also don't believe the problem is serious. So I can't support this course of action, and I can't support the money.
Councillor Jennings, you have a question? Because you've already spoken.
No.
Right, Councillor Wilkins.
Yes, I will speak. I think a short-term solution to this situation would be something that I say this because I witnessed a gentleman falling over a concrete barrier that high when you, this was in the new ambulance station car park, he went flat on his face because it was just the concrete bar. There was no yellow and black stripe on that concrete bar. You can buy the actual strip and adhere it to those concrete barriers, which stop the car from going further forward. Why can't we put some black and yellow danger sign concrete, there's a strip, or you can paint it. Don't care what you do, but that's what they do to actually stop you going forward in shopping centre car parks. It's safety strip, black and yellow, diagonally. And when I left the new ambulance station after this guy tripped over, I said to the girls, you need to put some safety strip on the concrete bar to stop people falling over them, as well as cars moving forward, and they agreed with me. I said we hadn't got around to it yet, but we will do. So that's what I would suggest is a short-term solution.
Councillor Davey, do you have a question? I certainly do, thank you. I just wanted, through you, to ask the administration, have the local government mutual liability scheme made an assessment of this area? I know our risk management, local employed risk manager has, but there's no mention of that in the blurb, which is part of my intention of the motion.
Yeah, certainly we've liaised with the scheme around that the AS 2890, and that's a set of rules that apply to public car parking. But in terms of getting them out to have an on-site inspection, I don't believe so, unless Mr. Spearman's aware of anything.
Is that possible to define? So we haven't had the mutual liability scheme inspect the area and the situation?
No, my understanding is that's what your motion is seeking.
Councillor Cornish.
Following on of Councillor Davies' good question there, were they notified of this incident?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll just get Mr. Spearman's comment.
Through the Mayor, yes, for an incident like this, yes, they would have been.
I have no one else on my screen, so Councillor Davey, can I go back to you?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Cornish.
Just one more question, in relation, if I could, to the motion, because it might sway me otherwise. With regards to the actual plan, is it just this section of the car park, or is it the whole car park that we are looking to assess?
Through you, Madam Mayor, my reading of the motion that's before you is it's specific to the northeastern end of the Civic car park. That's what's being sought.
Thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Can I just clarify, because I thought I'd made that very specific in the motion. If I haven't, it's the northeastern end of the Civic Centre building. Is that accurate? So that's where all of this, that building facade is. Is that not clear? Thank you.
Ready for you to sum up, Councillor.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for your input, everyone, and your due consideration. I think, as has been shown, I think we're just asking for a report for a bit more of a more considered assessment for traffic barriers to be able to stop a vehicle. We just can't assume that vehicles will always be low speed, as in this example that we've experienced 6 months ago. We constantly see reports, as has been outlined by several people, of vehicles impacting buildings when parking spaces are located immediately adjacent to cars. The risk is very high. We need the local government mutual liability scheme to make an assessment. I agree we should certainly have consistency with the hot pool equipment and the risk assessment of that. However, the risk of bodily injury or even death, which I'm sure everybody can see, for a greater percentage of humans who use these rooms in this really highly activated space in our building, which the staff have done a fantastic job utilising to its fullest, there is a significant risk of penetration of the building, whether through the building or the access doors. Staff don't, I believe, go out there for smoking breaks. The doors are left open, I think, for ventilation. There are great numbers also of council staff who use the pathway, as we see in the photo, to walk to and from the council car park at the most eastern end of the building, which abuts with Hyde Street. So a report containing the information requested would be very valuable. It is a special situation. There aren't any other equal car parks in the Civic Centre with buildings, cars coming and going with great rapidity at so close to the building, and with many people behind them. So we also already have bollards installed further west in front of the children's play area because that area was considered to be high risk. So all I'm asking is that we do an assessment and consider moving them further east so that we protect that building. So I hope you'll support this.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried. Now, I'm going to skip the CEO Review Committee one and I'm not avoiding it, but I'm thinking it might end up having to be in the confidential, so I'd like to deal with number 13.3 first, and then we'll go back to it, all right? So we are on page 365. So, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the recommendation as written for this policy. The purpose of this motion is to gain your support for a signage policy. There needs to be uniformity, clarity and consistency across the City of Burnside with signage. There are currently 95 signs in Kensington Gardens Reserve, so far too many. I actually walked Kensington Gardens and counted over 70, but I'm told there's actually 95. I approached administration regarding this excessive amount of signs on behalf of residents. I would like to thank administration for their swift action to remove 45 of these signs that were outdated or no longer needed. I would also like to thank the CEO for his acknowledgement that given the growing need to manage signage effectively, it would be appropriate for guidelines to be developed and incorporated into review of both Council's open space policy and leasing and licensing of community facilities policy. Administration have detailed a list of the 45 signs being removed and those being retained, should anyone want a copy. There is also an undertaking of a similar exercise in Penfold Park. I am looking forward to seeing this rolled out across all parks and reserves across Burnside, including clubs with the involvement of ward councillors. This is timely to address uniform signage across our clubs and community courts. Council sporting facilities need to appropriately balance the needs of community, club and council. Coach and business signage can give a misleading impression that coaches have right over courts at all times. The recent signage on courts 6, 7 and 8 in Kensington Gardens Reserve advises that commercial coaching on these courts is not permitted. This needs to be uniform across Burnside for any community courts to be clearly outlined if they are indeed for the community to use free of charge. It is a requirement that Council's written consent is obtained before any signage is erected. Council reserves the right to refuse consent for signage that is deemed inappropriate or inconsistent with the values and objectives set out in its strategies and plans. I hope you will support this very needed motion. Thank you.
I seek a seconder.
Thank you. I'll reserve my right. Thank you, Mayor.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Councillor Hallett.
I've got a suggestion for simplifying the recommendation, and that's that recommendation one, the council develops signage guidelines to be incorporated into a review of both councils' open space policy and its leasing and licensing of community facilities policy. Councillor Harvey referred to that in her speech supporting her motion, and I think that there's a swapping around between policy and guidelines, and it's what's actually being suggested and supported in the body of this report is that it's guidelines, not a policy. So that's why I'm saying, why don't we clarify that it is guidelines and that they are then, the guidelines are developed and then incorporated into the two policies. Yeah, that's what it says, yeah.
Page 367.
The CEO's just checked.
That's a report. It says it right there.
Thank you for your patience, Madam Mayor and councillors. What's just been proposed, it's quite different to the motion that's before us, so I'd suggest that it's an alternate motion. So if this one's defeated, then you'd have an opportunity to move that motion.
Right, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I'm happy to take up my option to speak. Yes, I support this. I'm aware of the need. I think we'd have a need for standardisation of signs. We've got a huge proliferation of them across the city of Burnside, particularly on our sporting facilities. One of the worst examples is on the Kensington Gardens Cricket Club and Rugby Club, which has in the past erupted into horrible and quite scungy advertising. There's also an issue of equity. Some tennis courts have signage and others don't. Others aren't permitted to. We also have some signage on buildings which is ugly and visual pollution. So I would welcome a report from the staff to actually let us know what's needed, whether we actually need a policy, whether we should have some guidelines, and that will suffice. Just something so we can standardise our signage, rationalise it across all our parks and reserves, put what's really necessary there, and give us some idea about costings and how we can rationalise it. So a report in December, I think, is really reasonable. There's also an equity issue too, which I think is obvious. Some people are getting unfair advantage with their advertising too. So I think a report looking into all of these aspects would be really valuable. So I'm supporting this. Thanks.
Councillor Cornish, you wish to speak?
Just a few questions, if I may. Is it about signage and advertising, the policy that you read, or are we looking at just purely the advertising?
So through you, Madam Mayor, the way I'm reading this proposed motion is that we develop, it's called a signage policy, but it would be set to manage both advertising
and council signs?
And yes.
So you know, the please keep off the path and the no golf and no driving on reserves and all, like, include all those signs as well. So it's not just, it's both.
It's both, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. No, that's my understanding.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was absolutely clear. I don't have an issue with developing a policy. I've been one for removing signs when they're completely useless. And in fact, I would suggest that we have a 1 day a year where every resident gets 3 stickers and they can put it on the back of each sign on their street that they don't think they need. And then we go around and we go and remove them, the ones with the most number of stickers. So make it participatory. So I'm all for removing the amount of pulling away from our attention from other matters as possible. So I don't have an issue with it. Is December a doable target? Was my only other question.
Through Madam Mayor, I'll just get... Oh, sorry. Yes, is a short answer.
Councillor Hubel.
Thank you, Worship. Look, I'm sensing the way the room's going, so I don't know that what I've got to say is going to do much, but I think that a policy for this is a bit over the top. Obviously respect for the position, but I just don't think that a policy in itself is necessary for this. I think that the alternative, quote unquote alternative solution of the guidelines, maybe tightening things up and then incorporating it into other policies, I think that's a better approach, in my opinion, I feel. And I think that even the movers' anecdote about, having an audit of a space, taking it to administration, and that leading to a favourable outcome, I think is actual evidence that supports the status quo being sufficient. I just think it's a use of resources that's a little bit too much, and I can't see it achieving anything that's a little bit more vigilance from everyone on the ground could achieve without dedicating staff resources to. So I'm going to vote against this. I'm sorry.
Councillor Wilkin.
I just want to give staff a bouquet, actually. This morning we walked early on Andrew's Walk on Hallett Road, actually, alongside Second Creek, and the signage there I thought was excellent. The black interpretive signs, fantastic. There were heritage signs, there were labels on new plantings that are there, and lo and behold, I came across and thought about the late Graham Bills, because there is a plaque there for Graham beside his tree. So I give full credit to the staff for the signage on Andrew's Walk. Fantastic. Great walk if you haven't done it, beside Second Creek. But get rid of the clutter, make it stylish, have a style guide, stick to it, and put the necessary information there. Thank you.
Councillor Jennings, you've got a question now, have you?
I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the main streets of Glenside, Glenunga, and the car parks, there is a lot of no skateboarding signs. I've never actually seen anybody skateboarding. It seems like it's... Perhaps. That's incredibly facetious reasoning, but I like it.
Okay, that's a question.
Thank you.
Councillor Jones. I'm just concerned of the time.
It's 9:54, people. Can we just get on with it and vote yes to this motion?
Thank you. Councillor Harvey, do you wish to say any more?
I'd just like to thank everybody for their input, and yes, I agree, Councillor Harvey, let's get on with it and vote for the motion. I hope you will support the motion. Thank you.
All those in favour? Against? Carried. We go back to Councillor Jones.
Excuse me, I had wanted to make a statement. It's some urgent business at 14.
We're still on motions on notice.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Don't want to do it at 15.
Well, I do need to say, if any names are mentioned, any company names are mentioned or likely to be mentioned, then I'll have to stop the motion or the discussion immediately and transfer it to the confidential time. So if you can assure me, well, hopefully everyone. All right. So then you run your motion as required. Right. Sorry, you got something else?
Oh, Madam Mayor, just because it is to do with the CEO Review Committee.
Oh, right, yes.
I probably just need to declare a conflict,
Yes.
and I'm happy to
And you
jump
depart,
out.
okay.
Yeah, just go back.
Depart temporarily.
So we're going to 13.2.
Yes.
Page number
362.
Okay.
Right, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, colleagues, this is appointing the CEO is probably the most, certainly one of the most, if not the most important things that we will do as a council. It could set the tone of the council for many years to come, based on the tenure of Chris and Paul Deb before him. Look, there's a saying that people who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. And I think this is a good time for us to review the process of appointing the CEO to make sure it's the best possible process. Now, I know that we reviewed this in 2022, according to the CEO's report, but frankly, I don't know about you, but I'm not sure that most of us paid much attention to the CEO appointment process because we weren't expecting to appoint one. So it's only really when you appoint one, sort of every 6 to 10 years, whatever, that it sharpens the mind about the process. And look, I was on the committee last time, and the process worked fine for me because I was heavily involved in it. But I know a lot of people, some of whom are still on the council, some of whom have left, who weren't on the committee, were super unhappy with the way that the process worked. They felt disenfranchised. They didn't feel that they were informed. We had the final meeting in this room on a Saturday afternoon where we got to ask the two candidates. The two candidates gave a presentation. We each got to ask them the question. Very, very nearly, we did not appoint a CEO that afternoon because people who hadn't been on the committee were in a state of mutiny. And I know the Mayor's shaking her head, but I've got a very different recollection that there were councillors who very closely said, we're not going to appoint someone, and then we'd have been stuck. So I think it's certainly worth looking at the process to say, are we all going to be happy when we get here together in January or February or December, and we've got two people in front of us, that we won't have a repeat of what nearly happened last time, with council as a whole saying, sorry committee, we don't like your choices, start again. That would be a complete disaster. So I think this is a sensible move to review what we're going to do so that we're all happy and can tick it off. Maybe we'll decide this is the best of all possible processes. Maybe we'll learn from what happened last time. And look, I'd be interested to hear from people who weren't on the committee last time how they feel the process could be improved. So, look, I hope you'll support the motion.
Councillor Turnbull, you're seconding?
I'm seconding, thank you.
Do you wish to speak now?
Yes, please. I'll be supporting this motion. I remember back to the recruitment of the previous CEO, when 7 of us were very new to council. We had little idea how the system worked. When 2 extra councils were voted to the 4 already on the CEO review committee, I remember thinking, well, I've got 6 on the committee and 6 not. Why not include everyone? Yes, let's include all councillors. This is an extremely significant change in the way council will operate, and we should have all been included in decision making. This is a time that inclusivity is imperative. Last time, the 2 shortlisted candidates, selected by the 6, were presented to us. We were allowed 1 question to each of them. In retrospect, the questions didn't tell me much about the candidates. and then it was just a hands up, hands down exercise. The whole process wasn't treated with the transparency and inclusivity that it deserved. Not only should we all need to be part of the decision-making process for the new CEO, but we should be consulted about the appointment of the interim acting CEO. Surely we can all be trusted at our age to read all the resumes and contribute to an inclusive, collegiate discussion for not only the interim decision, but also the final decision of the permanent position of the CEO. With due respect, I ask you to support this motion so that all councillors are involved in incredibly important decisions. Thank you.
Councillor, hang on, I'm just going to turn this one off. Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. I have an amendment which I hope will add to the intention of Councillor Jones, which I've sent through to Matt Spearman. It's an amendment intended to enhance what Councillor Jones has proposed. I sent it through before the meeting, just before the meeting started. Do you want me to send it again?
No, we've got it.
While it's coming up on the screen, may I read it out? The amendment is that, 1, that Council reviews the terms of reference, 2, that the following aspects in particular are included in the revision. At 7.1, membership, which is membership of the terms of reference, add the whole Council will form the selection committee in respect of CEO recruitment and handle the matter in confidence. At 8.1, meetings of the Council for recruitment of a CEO will be held in line with the timetable as determined and as often as weekly if necessary. At 8.6.2, amend to state that all agenda papers, reports and meeting decisions will be deemed confidential, circulated to Council members and kept in strictest confidence. At 13.1.1, amend to include the committee's role is with Council membership to recruit a Chief Executive Officer, determine the person specifications required, job and person specifications required, with the support of a recruitment agency, advertise the position widely and invite suitably qualified persons to apply, screen applicants, undertake psychometric testing, police and reference checks, interview a short list and identify a suitable candidate for appointment, and appoint an acting CEO until the appointment commences their role. And 3, the revised CEO Recruitment Committee terms of reference be brought to the October Council meeting for finalisation. So in speaking to that, I thank Councillor Jones for his motion. I think I've included those, the variation, which I think will clarify the important issues which need to be addressed to ensure that the whole of Council can be involved in the critical role of recruitment and selection of a new CEO. As has been outlined, this is a significant and critical role, leadership role in our community for many years to come. So we need a skilled and experienced leader to take on this role, and we need the help of a skilled recruitment firm to assist us. There is absolutely no reason why the Council cannot have a hands-on role in this process, as this is such a great investment for our community. So I hope you'll support this. Thank you.
Mr. Spearman, you have something you wish to state?
Yeah, thank you. Through the Mayor, that is quite substantial of a change, so it wouldn't be just an amendment. To highlight a few things, appointment of an acting CEO would technically be Alchavera's. That's either Council's role or the Mayor's role. And there's multiple elements in there where it's it's more than an amendment because there's things such as screening the applicants, undertaking psychometric testing, police and reference checks that would probably be done by the recruiter as opposed to these panel members.
Can I just also get you to think about, if you are in a committee that is conducting references, everyone would require a question, and every person has to ask the same question of every person who is interviewed. We would have to conduct those interviews at night, or people would have to take a whole day off work. We managed to get through 5 in a day last time round, and we had to have the 6th one on the following day to fit them all in. So you do need to consider that. You also have to consider that there is now a requirement, legislative requirement, that a person from the recruitment agency is also part of that panel. So that makes 14 people sitting around interviewing one person at a time. Put yourself in that position if you were the person. And nobody has ever stopped, either when Paul Debb was recruited or when Chris Cowley was recruited, nobody was ever stopped from having the opportunity to ask questions. All the committee did on both occasions was go from 6 people down to 3, and in the case of Paul Debb, down to 2 in the case of Chris Cowley and the other candidate. And on both occasions, they were brought to the whole council where they did a presentation, and then everyone had the opportunity to ask a question. Now, yeah, well, there's 13 of us, 13 questions that can be asked. One question is not unreasonable. If you listen to everybody else's questions, you then ask a question that hasn't been asked before. And that's something I think you need to consider. And then a decision was made, and I'm sorry, I don't agree with Councillor Jones. It was pretty obvious at that, and those people who were here at the time, it was pretty obvious after the presentation who was the better candidate, even before questions were asked. No, okay. I am providing facts and information. I am not. Right. I have the right to do that as a presiding member. Okay, I'll stop. All right, I've stopped now. Councillor Hubel.
Before I speak, I've just got a question directed to governance, and it's based on Mr. Spearman's assessment on the proposed amendment. Has this amendment been accepted as valid, and we're debating this amendment?
Through the Mayor,
call on that.
This can't be an amendment, so that it has to be moved at another time or a motion on notice, but it can't be an amendment.
So we're going back to...
so we have to go back to the original.
We're back to how, Councillor Jones's thing. So look, I think this is a fair motion in itself. I want to share my experience with the chamber. I was a new councillor when the current CEO was recruited, so it'd been only a few months when this was all happening, and I wasn't on the CEO committee. I know we expanded it to have a couple of extras, and I played around with going on that committee, and I decided not to put myself forward because I didn't feel that I really knew enough as a new councillor. But I was very comfortable not being on that committee, and I was very comfortable for the committee to make decisions on my behalf, fulfilling its role. And the current terms of reference are to, engage in the CEO recruitment process. And as a member of the chamber, I'd had a say in who my colleagues in the chamber were on that committee. I'd had a say in, I guess, electing people, other councillors to represent me in making that level of decision, much like the public elect us to make decisions on their behalf. So I'm personally of the view that having the CEO committee do the heavy lifting with this is appropriate and should continue. And I don't feel that it is a job for the entire chamber to get us to a short list. So I think the way we did it last time worked well from my point of view. I felt informed and I felt involved enough, and I felt that the shortlist presented to the entire chamber, I had faith that the committee of my peers that I had elected to do this job for me had done their job. So I propose that we again boost up the membership of that committee a little bit, because I think for this role it's worth having a little bit more perspective. So very happy to have a review, as this motion on notice states, but I'd be very keen, as someone who's been through this before, to see things done the same way.
Councillor Davey?
Can I move another variation? Am I permitted to move another variation?
No.
Oh, excuse me, I was asking the Mayor.
I'm looking over here and the governance people are telling me no.
Council can make any decisions it wants, actually. We don't need governance people. Could I ask a question then of governance?
Excuse me, but we have staff who are employed with a specific role,
Absolutely.
Councillor Davey.
Absolutely
That was
respect
totally
that.
inappropriate comment to make.
I absolutely respect that, but we don't have to check with governance about everything we do. I beg your pardon. My question is, why is it ultra vires that the council appoints the acting CEO, please?
Through the Mayor, what you just said there is not ultra vires. Council can appoint an acting CEO, and the Mayor can appoint one. It's just that the committee cannot.
Councillor Dawes.
Yes, I think I should speak, and I did appreciate all of your comments, Councillor Hubel. Thank you very much for those. I've been on this committee for 6 years. I think my term is up in November when we appoint the new committee. I think I've done my 6 years, and it'd be good for other councillors to be involved. You know, we did decide to add 2 more. In fact, I'd like to do that again. And I think that was a good move to have that. Where I thought we didn't quite have it right last time, and in the agenda, in the confidential session, there's a very, and so I hope I can say this, Mayor, there's a very detailed timetable. We did have a timetable last time, but not as detailed as we have this time, so that all councillors are aware of what's happening week by week. So I think that's a huge benefit of us undertaking a CEO appointment process last time. I do disagree with Councillor Jones that it nearly happened last time. I don't agree with that. You know, there was a disagreement within the CEO recruitment committee as to, you know, who we put forward, but we came to a consensus decision. Where I thought that we just let down the, you know, it's not a big thing, but to me, I think to others it was, is that not everybody in council knew what was happening from week to week, right? And they were waiting to hear what was happening. With this timetable, you will know exactly what is happening. Now, I think we interviewed about 7, I can't remember, people, and we got it down to 2. And with those 2, they gave presentations, and we asked questions, and then we made a call. And that process worked because we got a good CEO out of it. So I'm confident that that process did work for us last time. And so I'm glad that Councillor Hubel said that, because he wasn't part of it. But I know other councillors who are still around the table didn't have the same information that they thought that they should have. We've tried to change that by adding extra things in the confidential agenda coming up so that you are aware. So I will be supporting adding 2, which will be in the confidential session.
Councillor Cornish. No, sorry, Councillor Hallett, you're ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to support most of what Councillor Hooper said, in that I think that we did elect those reps onto the committee, and we elected them in good faith, and I actually trust them to make the right decision. So I think the process that's been explained has got enough checks and balances in it to, and I don't feel like I have to have control of the process. So I think that that's what they've been elected to do. We chose them, and let them get on with it.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I'm a similar sort of vein. I've been on both sides in my first term when CEO Paul Debb was appointed. I was not on the CEO panel back then. I was a councillor, new councillor, and got to the end process as we did. Back then there were only 3 members on that committee, and it has expanded to 4. I do think that last time round with 6, it might have been a little over I don't know, a bit much for some of the candidates to confront 6 people in a room, and might scare some candidates off about, you know, you guys don't know what you're doing, which is a little bit of a scary sort of prospect to consider in terms of trying to hire the best person. I do agree with the sentiments that we put people on audit selection panel tonight. We voted for them, and I accept their recommendations as to who the better candidates are at the end of the day. And we've done that with the CEO committee. Yes, I'm on the CEO committee, and have been for quite some time for it. And that's, you know, we don't usually get a huge number of people putting their hands up to be on the CEO committee. I do note Councillor Davey was the only other person that did put her hand up for the CEO committee at this term when we did this in 2002. And, you know, I get the fact that we have a terms of reference and we review it at the beginning of each term. It's similar, though, I find, to the, you know, development code. You can't just go and change things once a building starts going up next year because you don't like it. Like, we've got a terms of reference, you know, that was developed, we all agreed on, we appointed people to manage it. I'm quite fine with the 4 people that we've actually got at the moment. We do have a new councillor on the committee, which is very good, and we've got an independent, which we now must have by law. Someone completely outside this organisation sit on the panel. So I think we've got 5 people now on the panel to make the selection, and I think that's enough. I don't think we need 14, which is what this motion is requesting us to review to ensure that all council members are fully involved with all aspects and stages. So I don't think that it's warranted. Councillor Dawes mentioned, the stuff that's coming up, and that people will be informed of the progress, but I don't think everyone needs to be involved with every aspect. So I won't be supporting the motion.
Can I just ask for some clarification, because Councillor Jones is indicating there's something different in this motion than what you have stated. And I'm also concerned about the impact of any review of the terms of reference on the timetable and schedule that we have already created, or the committee has already created. Can I please ask Mr. Spearman, what would the impact be if this goes through, to ensure, this is where I'm confused, because I've got some indication that they want everyone on the committee, but then this motion actually says fully involved in all aspects and stages of the current recruitment process. It's not clear to me exactly what it is that you're going to be voting for. So I'm hoping that's going to be clear in Councillor Jones's summing up. But I will ask that question, what will the impact be if there's a change in the terms of reference, or if there's a review of the terms of reference? Because it seems to be there's two parts to this motion. Review the terms of reference and then ensure that everyone's involved. So can you please clarify?
Through the Mayor, and I do note Councillor Jones shaking his head, so there might be an interpretation issue, perhaps, which Councillor Jones can sum up. My personal interpretation is that it does involve all council members at all aspects and stages, which means that would be a significant scope increase to the request for quotes that are in the confidential portion of this agenda. We would need to notify those organisations that there's a change and that they'll have to work with a much larger committee in terms of setting everything up, getting everybody's feedback on all the different elements. Historically, feedback has been sought by committee members if there's certain aspects that need that from the rest of council, and then they could kind of manage that. But here, if they're fully involved with all aspects, then yes, that would be a significant cost increase, and it would be a delay to the timetable.
And so, therefore, I think that the confusing word in there is reviewing the terms of reference. You are wanting to change the terms of reference rather than review it in this motion, I believe.
I think we need to review the terms of reference as a group. We might then decide we're happy with the terms of reference, but we might decide we need to change them.
Well, that requires another meeting to discuss.
Yes.
So that it should come to the next meeting.
So, yeah, so I could have called a special council meeting to discuss it. I've said, well, is there support to do that? So that's what I'm saying is there support for us to review the terms of reference in a separate meeting?
Okay, now I think, do we all understand now?
Well, I've got my button on for a question.
I'll get to you, Councillor Davey.
Well, you're asking a question of us.
No,
I want to make a contribution.
Okay, now I will give you the opportunity to ask a question.
I was going to say, could we put a date in that it be brought back to the October meeting for us to consider?
I would envisage that if this motion passes, the Mayor can call a special meeting on her own, or I and two others can call a special meeting. And what I'd suggest is we would go into informal session and try and nut it out between us about something that we're all happy with.
Sounds reasonable.
I'm going to have to, it's 25 past, or nearly 25 past.
Could I just have
No, we have to continue, we have to vote to extend the meeting. It's 25 past 10 or near enough. So we need to have someone move a motion. We have got to do the electricity
I moved that we sit till
tonight.
11 o'clock.
So we're going to have to extend this meeting, move till 11 o'clock, seconded till 11 o'clock. All those in favour? All right, those against? All right, so we have agreed to go till 11 o'clock. So now, Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I didn't get a chance to speak because I was doing my amendment. So while the staff were finding my amendment to put up on the screen, so my feelings are that there is enough. I wasn't happy with the process last time. We didn't know who the applicants were. We saw no list of all the applicants, which we're fully entitled to see.
Councillor Davey, you did. You actually requested the documentation and you actually read the application.
I'm having my say. I do not believe we saw the full list of applicants.
My understanding is that when Councillor Davey moved the amendment, that constituted speaking to this amendment. So my understanding...
I was speaking because I was reading it out because it was so late and coming up on the screen, with respect.
Mr Spearman, it's your call.
So my understanding is that the act of...
Why don't you just let me freaking well speak?
That is correct. The wording of the Code of Practice is that moving an amendment does count as speaking.
Right, so therefore you can only ask a question, Councillor Davey. Now, I have Councillor Wilkins on my list. Can you turn your mic on?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy that we want to review the terms of reference for the CEO Recruitment Committee, in order that we are all aware of what is actually happening, to ensure that all council members are fully involved in all aspects and stages. Why can't we review the terms of reference? I think that's important. It's a critical appointment we have to make. I would have confidence in the committee. I'd like to see a couple of other people on the committee as well. So that's what I see as reviewing the terms of reference, and I do want to see that anything that is decided in that committee under confidential arrangement are informed. Council members who are not on the committee are kept informed all the way through. That's what I want to see. So,
Councillor Wilkins, if this motion does not get up, you could move a motion tonight recommending an additional 2 people to that committee. If we have time, yes. All right, Councillor Hallett.
I'd like to move that we put the motion and then just work out what we're, then we can get it out of the way and work out whether we're...
You're moving that the motion be put?
Yes.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Zing, thank you. All right, the motion is put. Those in favour of the motion as it stands there?
No, we're voting on whether the motion should be put.
Oh, sorry, we're voting on the motion should be put first. Those in favour of the motion being put? Right, those against? Right, now we will now put the motion, and those in favour of the motion as it stands? One, two, three. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The motion, those against? Right, then the motion is carried. Therefore, I'm going to have to call a special meeting. This is going to actually hold back the whole process of recruitment. That's going to have impact getting in the council has decided. I know, but I'm just explaining it, okay? I also have to call the meeting, or you can call the council. All right, we now need to move to the confidential item. Could just get Mr. Cowley back in first, please?
I wish to raise a matter of urgent business.
Yes,
I keep getting ignored.
No, I'm not ignoring you, Councillor Davey.
Good.
Can I just ask the 2 staff, if you're leaving, could you just wait a couple more minutes, please, before you do? Because I am going to move, I do want to, have you got that ready? Matt, I need to take this opportunity tonight to thank our CEO who is leaving. This is his last council meeting here with us tonight. And for that reason, I am moving this forward. And it's important that the staff are here to hear what I have to say and what we have to say before he departs. Chris has been an amazing CEO, and all of us have had the advantage and the support of him over the past 4.5 years. It is your last council meeting, and we want to thank you for your leadership over the past time. You led us through COVID, and in doing so took the lead in the local government sector. You took over after a period of strife in the council, and you have given staff renewed pride in working for the City of Burnside. You have led and supported environmental strategies, reconciliation, tree management and prosecution, and looked after our interests in Era Water and other subsidiaries and the hospital, Burnside Hospital and Pineview Village, as they have undergone change. You were chosen as a Metro CEO sector member of the Local Government Research and Development Scheme Advisory Committee, and have presented at local conferences and presented to our community through various media. Personally and professionally, I wish you well on behalf of the community of the City of Burnside, and that you and Fee's life in the town of Gawler will be a happy place for you to work in and to enjoy. And I've got this gift to give to you on behalf of the City of Burnside. And we have a little video that our staff have put together for us to have a look at.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's interesting watching that video. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and perhaps lose sight of the many good things that we have done together. And it goes without saying that, you know, none of that was possible without, one, the decisions of this chamber, and two, the support of my amazing staff that delivered, really, that, you know, delivered on the ground everything that, you know, this council puts in motion. And it's, you know, it'll be almost 5 years by the time I finish up, and I have thoroughly enjoyed the support of my mayor and the elected members in this chamber. It's a job that at times is thankless. Sometimes you're implementing things that the community don't always see as positives. But I think when you look back at this last 5 years, the community have had the benefit of this team and my team and myself trying to deliver for them. I had forgotten many of the things that were delivered there on the video. So I'll always remember my time at Burnside with pride and be proud of what we've delivered. I've grown as a person in my time here, and I think perhaps consolidated how I go about being a CEO. And what's become clear, there's two aspects to it for me. One is it's all about community, and the second is it's all about my team and how I can support them to deliver for the community. I do remember, you know, I think I was only here about 3 months before COVID kicked in. I hadn't really met the team and gelled with the team, and then we were thrust into this alien world that none of us had been in. But I think it really set the scene for how, you know, this council cared for its community and continues to care for its community. Yeah, I think that pretty sums it up, Madam Mayor. Thank you for this lovely gift, and I do wholeheartedly wish you all the very best for the future. Yeah, whilst I'm departing Burnside, it will always have a place in my heart. Thank you.
So now, Bill, and if you could go. Sorry for holding you back, but I just felt I wanted you to be here. Rebecca, I mean, not Jess. Right, now we can move on, and now Councillor Davey, who wished to make a 3-minute statement, if it is the will of the meeting.
Is everybody happy?
Yes.
Did I make it? I'm wanting to make a statement to you tonight. I've left a letter on your desk about the changes that have been made in the chamber. And this is as a result of directions by the Mayor under Section 76G of the Act, which are for the purpose of ensuring that Councillor Davies' acts or omissions do not adversely affect the health and safety of Councillor Henschke. The notice that she states in the notice that the proposed directions are not based upon nor intended to constitute any formal finding of wrongdoing on Councillor Davies' part. Rather, the purpose is to avoid adverse effects to the health and safety of Councillor Henschke. I've considered the option of mediation and have determined that this approach is not appropriate at this time. As a responsible person under Section 75G of the Act, I'm required to be satisfied that there is a legislative basis for action under 75G, and in the circumstances I'm satisfied there is. After considering Councillor Davies' submissions, which are through my lawyer, I remain of the view that the directions in the same form as attached to the notice are reasonably necessary to ensure that Councillor Davies' acts or omissions do not adversely affect the health and safety of Councillor Henschke. Accordingly, I now issue Councillor Davey with the enclosed principal members' directions pursuant to Section 75G of the Local Government Act dated 16th of September with immediate effect. I reiterate that these directions are not a finding of wrongdoing on Councillor Davies' part, and the purpose of these directions is to avoid adverse effects to the health and safety of Councillor Henschke. So these will remain in force for as long as Councillor Henschke remains a member of the Council, and this is issues that says and may be reviewed within 3 months of the date of the directions. And I advise that Councillor Davey will be seated to the right of the Chief Executive Officer in Council Chamber and gives me the right to appeal this decision or contact the Ombudsman with this decision. I do not know what's wrong with Councillor Henschke, but this has been issued and I thought you should all be aware of it. This is my document, so that is why I am sending you all a copy of it and letting you know how things work now in this council. So that's why we've got this situation tonight.
I just want to say one thing. It's not how this works in this council. It is how this works now under the new legislation. And now we will move into confidential. Councillor Cornish, you happy to move such a motion to move into confidential? Thank you to the staff who have been here and who need to go now. And we will start, we'll need to vote on that first of all. Those in favour, seconder, Councillor Davey. All those in favour? Against?